Florida just signed a bill banning all kids under 14 from social media, but what does that actually mean?
Plus, we're heading into Final Four weekend and we've got everything you need to know. And you're gonna need a pair of these to catch a sneak peek of the eclipse. Get ready, because this is First Stop News. Hey everyone, I'm Larry. Welcome to our very first episode of First Stop News. We're a news show for kids, or really anyone who wants to understand what's going on out there. Basically, we're your first stop for everything you need to know. We're gonna bring you current events, deep dive explainers, and stories you wanna hear about. So make sure to like and subscribe for more. Let's start off with our first ever question of the day. We're heading into the Final Four weekend of March Madness, the penultimate round of the NCAA basketball tournament where, you guessed it, the Final Four teams for both men's and women's basketball will battle it out to get into the finals. We've got more on the tournament later, but you gotta admit, this year the women's tournament has been dominating headlines. Even former Lakers center Shaquille O'Neal told People magazine he was more excited about the women's game than the men's. So our question of the day, when was the women's first NCAA tournament held? Was it in 1939, 1982, or 1998? You think you know? Stick around and we'll tell you if you're right. There is major space news happening, so major that it won't happen again until 2044. On April 8th, a total solar eclipse will happen in parts of Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Thanks to NASA, I can actually show you how an eclipse works. So this is the sun, this is the moon, and this is the earth. Usually we have no problem getting the sun's rays. But what happens during an eclipse is the moon, as it rotates around the earth, is going to pass in front of the sun. So if you want to see that from the sun's perspective, this is the other side of the moon, where we'll actually be under the dark side of the moon. And the moon is going to create a path of totality, a shadow of the moon actually, on planet Earth. It's going to start at the northern tip of Mexico, cut right through the middle of the US, and then kind of hit the southern corner of Canada on the way out. And if you're in the path of totality, you're going to have around 4 minutes of total darkness outside. But even if you're not, you're still going to end up catching a partial eclipse. People are so excited that hotels along the path are sold out, and Delta Airlines even has 2 flights that will fly directly along the path so passengers can see it from the skies. But a warning, looking directly at the sun is not safe for your eyes. So if you plan on sneaking a peek, make sure you're wearing eclipse glasses like these. Totally fashion forward, can't see a thing, could look straight at the sun. Or, if you don't have eclipse glasses, we talked to astronomer Jeffrey Bennett to see if there were any other ways to experience the eclipse. With your back to the sun, of course.
Any little hole in a piece of paper, even using your fingers like that to make holes between your fingers, you'll see like a crescent sun down on the ground. You can even stand under a tree and look at the sunlight filtering down through the leaves, and you'll see lots of images. I like to say there's only one bad place to be during the total eclipse, and that is inside.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill banning social media for kids under 14. So what does this mean? If you live in the state of Florida and you're under 14, you won't be allowed to have accounts on platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram. And if you're 14 and 15 years old, the bill says you have to have your parents' permission before having an account. Now, most of these platforms technically already require kids to be 13 or older to sign up. Governor DeSantis says social media is harmful to kids' well-being.
Being buried in those devices all day is not the best way to grow up.
Some states, like Utah and Arkansas, have passed laws requiring kids under 18 to get parental consent to access social media. But Florida's law will be the strictest in U.S. history, and it's expected to face challenges in court. People against the bill say it violates the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment that protects free speech. They also say parents, not the government, should be able to make decisions about what their kids do online. The law is set to take effect in Florida on January 1st, 2025. We're going to keep watching this to see what happens, but what do you all think about this? We want to hear your opinion, so email us at hi@firststopnews.com. On Wednesday, a strong earthquake hit Taiwan, which is a country in East Asia. Now, some of this video is kind of scary. It was the biggest earthquake in decades at a 7.4 magnitude. It happened in the city of Hualien. An earthquake happens when the rocks underneath the Earth's surface move and causes the ground to shake. This does happen all the time, all around the world, and usually you can't feel it, but sometimes it can be really big and cause a lot of damage. Taiwan's in an area called the Ring of Fire, which is where many earthquakes and volcanoes happen. Many buildings were damaged and thousands lost power. A lot of people are injured and some have died, but cleanup and rescue efforts are underway. The White House has been monitoring the situation and is prepared to send any necessary assistance. Our video of the day is a rare baby hippo.
This is the first birth in the zoo in 2024, and what a birth.
It's a pygmy hippo and it's endangered. The International Union for Conservation of Nature estimates that there are less than 2,500 of the West African species left in the wild. So staff at this zoo in Athens, Greece were thrilled to welcome this little guy.
Every captive birth of pygmy hippos is extremely important, and we're very happy to see this baby grow into a healthy adult hippo, and hopefully one day reproduce and produce more pygmy hippos.
He's healthy, he's happy, and he's been hanging out with his mom, Lizzie. Some other facts about pygmy hippos: they're small. A common hippo weighs about 10 times as much as this species, and they're nocturnal, meaning they're most active at night. Who knew? March is over, but the madness goes on as we head into Final Four weekend. The biggest story this season has definitely been the women's games. Iowa superstar Caitlin Clark led her team with 41 points into the Final Four by knocking out reigning champs LSU. That game was the most watched college basketball game ever for ESPN. 12.3 million people tuned in for the rematch of last year's top two teams. Iowa will next face the UConn Huskies, who will not make it easy. The Huskies have made it to the last 15 of 16 Final Fours. Friday night's game is the second of a doubleheader following the Battle of the Carolinas when South Carolina faces NC State. Now let's talk the men's games. Purdue is taking on NC State's men's team. They're playing for the strange honor of potentially being the national champions with the most regular season L's. And UConn will face tournament first-timers Alabama. Speaking of making history, that reminds me of our question of the day. What was, when was, not what was, what year was? Drum roll, please. Oh boy. Question. Speaking of making history, that reminds me of our question of the day. When was the women's first NCAA tournament held? Was it 1939, 1982, or 1998? Drum roll, please. I don't know what that sound was, but that wasn't a drum roll. 1982. Did you get it right? The history of women's basketball started way before 1982. That was just the year that the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or what we know as the NCAA, started sponsoring the sport. That's why Caitlin Clark is the highest scoring D1 NCAA athlete ever, but it's actually Pearl Moore of Francis Marion who set the all-time women's scoring record, but she did it back in 1979. Do you have a sibling? If you do, you probably already know it's like having a built-in best friend for life. I've got 3 of them, but for the record, I'm the oldest, so no one knows better than me that living with siblings means sometimes arguing over clothes, games, and who gets to ride shotgun. But as it turns out, a little sibling rivalry is actually good for you.
No.
According to a study by the University of Cambridge, having a little healthy competition or disagreements with your brothers and sisters when you're younger can actually help you develop social skills as you get older. And guess what? There's a day just for you to celebrate each other. Yep, April 10th is National Siblings Day. Now, it's not actually a federal holiday, so yes, you still have to go to school. But it is a day to celebrate the special bond you share. It was founded in 1997 along with the Siblings Day Foundation, a nonprofit that's working to get the day nationally recognized just like Mother's Day or Father's Day. So how can you celebrate? Write your siblings a card. Tell them how much they mean to you. Or just let them borrow that shirt they've been asking about for months. Hey, maybe give them the game controller before they go to mom. Goes a long way. And if you don't have siblings, you can still celebrate. On siblingsday.org, you can send a card to someone who is like a sibling to you, which is just as important. Some of you told us what you like best about having a sibling and your favorite things about them.
My favorite thing about her is she always wants to play with me.
When I'm sad, she always helps me.
My favorite thing about him is that he always is super funny. You're right, I am.
That's it. That wraps our first show together ever. Thanks for checking us out. We'll be back at it again with more news next Friday. So until then, keep your Eclipse glasses handy. We'll see you guys next week. Want to know why this volcano is spitting out perfect rings? Keep watching. Think you could spend a year living on Mars? Or at least pretend to? And is Bronny James, LeBron James' son, going to the NBA? We'll tell you all the answers and more, because this is First Stop News. Hey everybody, it's a new day and another national day. Yes, today, April 12th, is National Grilled Cheese Day. A day dedicated to the ooey gooey melty cheese between 2 slices of bread. Thanks to the power of video, I can make one of those grilled cheeses appear right here. Thanks, video.
Grilled cheese.
I've got 2 questions for you. One is, how do you like your grilled cheese? I like mine with bacon. And the other is our question of the day. I got some tomato soup to dip this in or something? Bronny James is LeBron James' 19-year-old son. He's been playing basketball at USC, and he just made the news in the will he, won't he go pro debate. All this draft talk got us thinking about his dad, LeBron. So, our question of the day is, what year was LeBron James drafted into the NBA? Think you know? Keep your guesses handy because we'll tell you if you're right later on in the show. The calendar may say it's spring, but Mother Nature has other ideas. Severe storms traveled across the southern part of the U.S., bringing wild winds, intense rain, and tornadoes. People across Texas caught video of the storm. Tornadoes hit parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Florida, leaving some damage to homes and businesses. Trees were also knocked down. Parts of Mississippi saw about 5 inches of rain. Many are still without power across the states, but officials are working to get it restored. The Red Cross has also set up emergency shelters in some areas to help anyone who needs it. And the storm is expected to move offshore. We hope everyone stays safe out there. We've got big news about Beyonce.
16 carriages driving away.
Queen Bee is reigning atop the charts. Her album, Cowboy has been out for 2 weeks, and now Beyonce has made history as the first black woman to reach #1 on Billboard's country album chart. Not only that, this is also her 8th #1 album on the Billboard 200 list. And yes, it's the best-selling album of the year so far. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, the album has 27 songs, including the one and only, "It Ain't Texas, Ain't No Hold'em," Texas Hold'em. And collaborations with Miley Cyrus, Post Malone, and Dolly Parton. Plus, there are some nods to civil rights. Black country artists are featured on a cover of Blackbird, a Beatles song inspired by the Little Rock Nine who fought to desegregate public schools. This album has been a long time coming, and the Beehive has been loving it. A new animal species was just discovered. It's called the Kermitops gratis. And if you're thinking, hey, that sounds a lot like Kermit the Frog, you're right. Paleontologists are scientists who use fossils to study the history of life on Earth, and a group of them at the Smithsonian National Museum of History named the species after the famous frog. See here, the fossil looks like it has his grin. But get this, it was discovered almost 40 years ago in Texas, when it was uncovered with some other fossils that paleontologists just didn't have time to look at. So, it sat in the museum until recently. The researcher thought it could be related to an existing species, so he teamed up with a coworker to study it. And they realized it was actually an entirely new species of amphibian, which are small animals with 4 legs that need water to survive, like frogs, toads, and salamanders. Oh, and the coolest part, it's almost 270 million years old. That means it was on Earth even before the dinosaurs. Based on the shape of the fossil, it would probably look similar to a salamander if it was still around today. Discovering new species like this is great for preserving history. Now the only question is, how does Miss Piggy feel about all this? Our video of the day is from a volcano in Italy called Mount Etna. See these rings of smoke? This volcano was spewing them out for over a week. The perfect circles are called volcanic vortex rings, and they're made up of gas and water vapor. And rarely, when pressure builds up inside the volcano, they release just like this. Mount Etna is the largest active volcano in Europe, and scientists say it emits more of these rings than any other volcano on Earth. Italian volcanologists say there is no danger from its activity. The rings have led some locals to rename the volcano Lady of the Rings. It's bellissimo, as the Italians would say. Is Bronny going pro? That's been the question on basketball fans' minds for years, or even ever since he was born. Yes, we're talking about LeBron James' 19-year-old son. He's been playing basketball at USC as a freshman this past season, and he just made a major announcement about his future. On Instagram, he said 2 things. 1, he's preparing to enter the NBA draft. 2, he's also entering into the transfer portal, which means he's open to play for a different school in the NCAA. Basically, he's still keeping himself eligible to play in college if he doesn't go pro. Now, there's more to know about Bronny. His first season at USC was shortened after he suffered cardiac arrest last July. Cardiac arrest is when someone's heart unexpectedly stops beating. It's quite rare. For Bronny, it was likely caused by a heart condition he's had since birth. He underwent a procedure to treat it and was eventually cleared to play basketball again. We'll have to wait and see what the 6'3" guard ultimately decides. He'll go through the draft process next month, and then he has until June 16th to decide if he wants to turn pro or stay playing college ball. As for LeBron, he's on record saying he'd love to play in the NBA with his sons. Which leads us to the question of the day: what year was LeBron James drafted into the NBA? The answer: 2003. Back then, LeBron was only 18 years old, just 1 year younger than Bronny is now. The Cleveland Cavaliers selected LeBron James as the #1 overall draft pick that year. A pretty good choice, if I do say so myself. Have you wondered what it's like to live on Mars? Well, Some people are about to find out. NASA is looking for 4 people to live and work in a Mars simulator at a space center in Houston, Texas for a full year. This is the second of 3 missions like this where humans live as if they're on the red planet for an extended period of time. It's all part of NASA's plan to have astronauts land on the moon. Nope. Mars is not the moon. I keep telling people this. Gravity. It's all part of NASA's plan to have astronauts land on and explore the planet in the 2030s. So far, only robotic rovers have ever been there. Starting next spring, the 4 people selected will live in a 3D printed facility that mimics what life is like on Mars. But don't worry, there are some comforts from home like board games, a gaming console, and a TV. So you can stay up to date on Fortnite. To apply, you have to be at least 30 years old and have experience working in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So we want to know, if there was a program like this where you could live and go to school in a Mars simulator, would you apply? Send us an email with your parents at hi@firststopnews.com and tell us what you think. And before we go, we wanted to say Eid Mubarak to everyone who observed Ramadan this past month. The Muslim holiday ended earlier this week, culminating with Eid al-Fitr, which means the feast of the breaking of the fast. It's when family and friends gather to pray, eat, and celebrate the end of the holy month. All right, everybody, that's our show. I hope you guys have a great weekend. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure to do so before you go, and we will see you again right here at First Stop News next Friday. Oh, I'm starving. We've got a lot to cover today. News, interviews, Taylor's new album. It's all coming up on First Stop News. Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm Larry and I'm the host of First Stop News, and today we're covering everything, and I mean everything in the whole wide world, because Earth Day is right around the corner. And you may have plans to take action at school or at home to help protect our planet. We're going to tell you how Earth Day came to be, but first, we got to get to the question of the day. Did you know Earth Day's official organizers set a theme each year? So our question of the day is, what's the theme of this year's Earth Day? Think you know? Gotta guess? Stick around, you're going to find out. Our first story is about violence in the Middle East, so feel free to grab someone older to watch with you. On April 13th, Iran launched a major missile attack against Israel. Israel, with the help from the US military and others like Britain, France, and Jordan, were able to intercept and shoot down almost all of the drones and missiles before they hit any of the intended targets. A young girl was seriously injured, but there was no other major damage and no deaths were reported. Iran said the action was retaliation for a suspected Israeli attack on one of their embassies that killed senior military commanders. It's the first time Iran has ever launched an attack on Israel from within its own territory. The US and other members of the G7 pledged their support to Israel, but asked the country not to strike back, concerned it would cause a larger war within the Middle East. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will, quote, make its own decisions on how to respond. And early Friday morning, it's believed Israel conducted a counterstrike against Iran. Israel has not publicly confirmed the strike. Explosions were heard near an army base, and Iran said the drones were shot down. No major damage has been reported as of now, and there are no indication that more action will be taken by either side. We'll keep watching this to see how this all plays out. Shohei Ohtani is used to making headlines, like being one of the only players who both pitches and bats. Or like last December when he signed a 10-year, record-breaking $700 million contract with the Dodgers. He's been in the news recently for another headline away from the plate. His longtime interpreter was charged with bank fraud.
Mr. Mitsuhara stole over $16 million from Mr. Ohtani's account in order to pay for these illegal sports bets.
Prosecutors say Ippei Mitsuhara transferred money from Ohtani's bank account without Ohtani knowing to pay his gambling debts. The theft was discovered through a federal investigation. Mitsuhara confessed to Ohtani and the rest of the Dodgers locker room after they won their season opener in Seoul, South Korea. Mitsuhara has been fired from the Dodgers, and the MLB will wait for further action until the federal investigation is complete. Ohtani said he didn't know this was happening and was not involved. Federal prosecutors have said there's no evidence suggesting otherwise. A gambling scandal has also hit the NBA. Toronto Raptors forward Jonte Porter was just banned from the league for life. Why? It started on March 20th, when an online betting app alerted the league to a suspicious $80,000 bet. This was also the day Porter was benched for feeling ill. This launched an investigation that the NBA alleges Porter was gambling on games and giving away confidential health information to known bettors.
I never doubt injuries. I never doubt, honesty from players. Obviously, I never had a situation like this before.
Nearly every sports league has strict rules that ban players from gambling and making bets in order to maintain the integrity of the sport. Porter is the first player in the league banned for betting since 1954. The Environmental Protection Agency, known as the EPA, for the first time ever, put a national limit on the level of forever chemicals that can be in drinking water. This is a big deal. But why and what are forever chemicals? Forever chemicals, sometimes called PFAS, are a type of chemical that can be found in everything from non-stick pans to paint to the foam firefighters use to put out flames. Over the past few decades, higher levels of these chemicals have been found in drinking water and linked to some pretty big health issues. They also stick around in the environment for a long time, which is where the name forever comes from. This new rule is great because it puts a limit on the amount allowed in water and could reduce exposure for 100 million people. Water treatment plants across the US now have 5 years to buy, install, and test new technology that'll filter out these chemicals if they're higher than the limit. So this rule could help lower the rates of illness in the US and help the Earth. The WNBA draft took place earlier this week, and no surprises who came out on top.
The Indiana Fever select.
Iowa's Caitlin Clark burst onto the professional scene in style, going number 1, as expected, to the Indiana Fever. The draft was held in front of fans for the first time since 2016, and probably riding high after the best year of women's college basketball ever. The 1,000 tickets available sold out in 15 minutes. But if you couldn't make it, we got you covered. The LA Sparks took Stanford's Cameron Brink 2nd, and Tennessee's Rakia Jackson 4th overall. Chicago went all out, drafting South Carolina and current national champ and MVP Camila Cardoso 3rd, and former national champ LSU's Angel Reese 7th. The Dallas Wings also got 2 top teners. There's been a lot of talk about the mega difference in salary between the WNBA and NBA players. We know Caitlin Clark's first-year salary is just $76,000 compared to the number 1 draft pick for the NBA last year, which was $10 million. This is in part because the men's league is more popular than the women's league, and it brings in way more revenue. But the WNBA, which has only been around since 1997, is in a position to break through and change the conversation. Check these out. These photos are out of Greece, where the Olympic torch is officially lit for the summer's Paris Games. This ceremony has been a tradition since 1936, taking place in ancient Olympia, Greece, the birthplace of the Olympic Games. Fire was a sacred element to the ancient Greeks, and the flame is a symbol of peace, friendship, hope, and unity. It was lit by an actress playing the part of a Greek priestess at the ruins of the Temple of Hera. Next, it goes through relays in both Greece and France, and finally, the Olympic flame will light up in Paris at the opening ceremony for the Games on July 26th. So that means it's only less than 100 days away till the Olympics. Who are you rooting for? Do you have anything sitting around your house that you no longer use? Someone out there might enjoy giving it a second life. That's what Charlie Jeffers, a 17-year-old from California, was thinking when he created Pass the Bricks. It's a nonprofit that takes donated Lego and ships them to kids worldwide. He turned his love of Lego into a whole lot of good.
My room literally does not have room for anymore. Now, I've always loved Legos since I was probably 4 or 5, and now it's a lot of kind of different ones. Some of those flower sets, like the orchid, are really cool. The jazz band, the ones that are like paintings, like that they turn into Lego, those ones are so cool. Pass the Bricks is a nonprofit that basically takes used Legos and turns them into new sets for kids who don't have access to tools like Legos. During the pandemic, I was building some, and then I realized I have a lot of privilege being where I am, and there's some people who just unfortunately don't have access to the same things that I do, and I just wanted to kind of do something to address that. So our process is simple. We just kind of take the bricks, wash them down with a hose. Then, once we just have a bunch of bricks, we just package that up and send it off to wherever needs them. Like for me in the Bay Area, it's a lot of like nonprofits, kind of Boys and Girls Club places that we work with. We have over 100 ambassadors in over 100 cities. Some ambassadors in other areas do it differently through schools or church groups, or just sending them out. Typically we send out about 20 to 40 pieces in each set. Sometimes we do send out larger kind of 100-ish piece sets, but really depends. We've probably delivered about 7,000 pounds of Legos and probably 4,000 sets so far. It's just been super cool seeing the reaction from people sending us emails, or people kids receiving sets, where everyone just seems super happy and excited, and I love that and want to keep that going. The more kids that we can reach, the better. That's, I think, ultimately the goal. It's just such a amazing creative outlet. Being able to actually build in your hands something whatever you want it to be, I think that is kind of the best thing.
It's so cool to see how so much Lego can reach so many kids. We should mention we reached out to Lego to hear what they think about Charlie's great work, and we've not heard back. But as a pretty big fan of building Lego, I gotta say that's cool. Okay, Monday, April 22nd is Earth Day, but how did Earth Day come to be? Back in 1970, a senator from Wisconsin, Gaylord Nelson, witnessed an oil spill in Santa Barbara, California that got him fired up. He teamed up with another senator and a student activist, Dennis Hayes, to energize college students to protest about the environment. The date, April 22nd, was chosen because it fell between spring break and final exams, and Hayes knew students would be around. 20 million Americans across the country worked together that day to bring attention to the planet. It was so powerful that by the end of 1970, the EPA was formed and environmental laws began to pop up. By 1990, Earth Day became a global initiative, and today over 190 countries participate in honoring the day. Each year there is a theme, which brings us back to our question of the day. Do you know the theme of this year's Earth Day? The answer, plastics versus planets. I got it. Do you know the theme of this year's Earth Day? The answer, planet versus plastics, with the goal of reducing plastic consumption 60% by 2040. One thing I like to do to help out the planet is use reusable bottles. It's small, but it helps. Giant trolls have taken over the Pacific Northwest. That's this area over here. Well, not these trolls, but these trolls. They're sculptures. Trolls are a big part of Scandinavian folklore, and for more than 10 years, a Danish artist named Thomas Dambo has been bringing them to life in art. He's dropped his creations all over the world, with 6 recent ones in the United States. And as you can see here, you can't miss them. They're all between 12 and 20 feet tall and have been placed in natural spaces like forests and on beaches. But the coolest part? They're made from wood and other recyclable materials. The artist wants people to know that trash can have value, and recycling materials into artwork is just one way to help take care of the earth. The trolls even have their own stories and names that honor indigenous traditions. There's Pia the Peacekeeper. This guy's Jacob Two Trees. This one's my boy, that's Frankie Feet Splinters. I love Frankie. If you want to see them in person, you have time. They're gonna stay scattered around the Pacific Northwest in cities like Portland and Washington until at least 2026. And we're closing today's show with the start of a new era and a shout out for all the Swifties out there listening to the Tortured Poets Department, whether you're on your 4th or your 400th playthrough. And for those of you who aren't aware, that's this album, Swift's 11th, it dropped today. And don't forget, she announced a new music video tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So we want to know, what do you think of the album? What's your favorite track? What's your favorite Easter egg? Send us an email at hi@firststopnews.com with your parents' permission to let us know what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. And before you go, if you could leave us a like or a subscribe, that would really help us out. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again next Friday. Bye. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday, and welcome to First Stop News, your first stop for everything you need to know. We've got new episodes every Friday, so please like and subscribe. Let's jump.
Larry.
Kelsey, what are you doing here?
I've been here.
Where have you been for the last few episodes?
On TikTok.
Well, not for long.
Actually, we're gonna get into that. But first, I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Larry.
And this is First Stop News. Should we get into that question of the day?
Let's. Within a couple weeks, a very loud chorus is set to take over parts of the northwest and southeast areas of the United States. And all the noise is coming from one certain type of bug.
So our question of the day is, do you know the names of these noisy bugs that will emerge in record numbers this spring? Is it bees? Cicadas? Moths? Gotta guess? Well, hold on to it and we'll tell you the answer in just a little bit.
It's been a full week in Washington. President Biden signed a package that was passed in Congress into law.
It's going to make America safer. It's going to make the world safer.
The package includes 4 different bills that give aid or money to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. These countries are U.S. allies, and the bills offer them over $95 billion total for mostly military assistance.
When our allies are stronger, we are stronger.
It also includes a bill that could make TikTok illegal in the United States.
Okay, so this is a lot, and we're gonna break it down for you. All bills start in Congress, and for a bill to become a law, it has to go through both sides of Congress, the House and the Senate. If both sides pass the bill, then it goes to the president's desk where they can veto it or sign it into law.
Now, back to this bill. It will provide over $60 billion to Ukraine as it continues to fight back in its war against Russia.
Let's rewind a little to talk about Ukraine. Ukraine is a country in Eastern Europe, and Russia invaded it over 2 years ago. Russia wants to take over Ukraine and bring the country back under the control of Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Ukraine is fighting to keep its independence that it's had since 1991. The United States is on the side of Ukraine and has supported President Zelensky from the very beginning of the war.
Also in this package is money for Israel. It would replenish weapons Israel says it needs to defend itself against its known enemies now and in the future. There is also funding for humanitarian needs for people in Gaza who are in need of food, medicine, and clean water. Israel has been at war in Gaza with Hamas since the October 7th attack by Hamas in southern Israel.
$8 billion will go to Taiwan to strengthen their military defense system.
The bill is passed without objection.
It's taken months for Republicans and Democrats in Congress to come together on how to spend money for U.S. allies. But this time, the package has had bipartisan support, meaning it has had enough yes votes from both Democrats and Republicans to pass.
And that was largely because there were parts that appealed to both sides, which helped push it forward.
Now, let's talk TikTok. Built into this package is a bill that could ban TikTok in the United States. TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance, and ByteDance is headquartered in China. For years, the US government has believed that China could be using the app to illegally access data from users in the US. And they're also concerned that China's government could control the app's algorithm and influence what type of content US users see.
The CEO of TikTok testified in front of Congress last year saying,
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government.
But lots of people in Congress don't believe it. The bill forces ByteDance to divest or sell TikTok to a US-based owner, which would make it a US company. So ByteDance would no longer own it, and it wouldn't be connected to the Chinese government. Right now, nothing changes with it, and users can continue scrolling. But if ByteDance doesn't sell the app within a year, TikTok would be pulled from app stores in the US.
The social media company has responded.
Rest assured, we aren't going anywhere. We are confident and we will keep fighting for your rights in the courts.
They have said they will sue the US government, arguing this goes against the First Amendment, which says Americans have the right to free speech. We know that was a lot. So let us know what you want to know more about by sending an email to hi@firststopnews.com.
All right, Kelsey, I don't know about you, but after all that news, I could use a little game break.
I agree with you.
Thankfully, Billie Eilish is Fortnite's new bad guy. Duh.
Please don't do that again, Larry.
Fortnite Festival Season 3 just launched, and players can now swap their Battle Royale victory crowns for the kind of crown Eilish sings about. Following the footsteps of Lady Gaga and The Weeknd, Eilish is the new face of the rhythm-based game. Fortnite Festival was launched at the end of 2023. Billie shared her skin to followers earlier this week, and players have already been able to unlock iconic Eilish outfits, instruments, and emotes. The game features 3 of her songs, including Happier Than Ever at launch, and more will be released when her 3rd album drops May 17th. The festival pass costs 1,800 V-Bucks, Fortnite's in-game currency, or about 15 actual bucks. Okay, you gotta see our video of the day. These are emperor penguin chicks in Antarctica, and they are jumping off a 50-foot cliff. Kelsey, have you ever jumped off? Would you ever jump off a 50-foot cliff?
I don't think it's for me, Larry. The daring dive was caught on camera for National Geographic.
What on earth is going on here?
And the cameraman says this big of a penguin leap has never been filmed before. He said he's only seen them jump into water a few feet from the surface. Let's talk about emperor penguins. They are considered threatened by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which means they could become an endangered species in the future. They are the largest kind of penguin. They're roughly 4 feet tall, which is about the height of a 6-year-old. They can dive over 1,500 feet. They can stay underwater for at least 22 minutes, and they almost all live in Antarctica. Now that's penguin power, baby. All right, now we want to introduce you to Tiffany Gay. She's a 17-year-old inventor who was inspired by a family friend with a visual impairment, which led her to design a visor that helps people who have trouble seeing. The World Health Organization estimates that globally, at least 2.2 billion people have near or distance vision impairment. So, how did this Florida teen get interested in science? Listen to what she told us.
At a very young age, my dad and I used to visit the Natural Museum of Science, and I remember seeing all these amazing exhibitions like big dinosaurs and asteroids, and it really made me interested in understanding the science behind all of the amazing things I was seeing. This is the device to help those who are visually impaired. The device I developed uses a series of components called sensors. They're able to see objects within the user's path. It then sends a signal that notifies someone who's visually impaired that there's an object there through what we call haptic feedback. Haptic feedback is a special type of vibrational feedback. It's very similar to what you get on your iPhone whenever you receive a call from your mom or your dad. I'm really humbled by the places that this device has taken me. I've been able to show my products at a variety of international fairs, including the Taiwan International Science Fair and the Tunisian International Science Fair, where I've been fortunate to be awarded as the Grand Award winner. And even beyond this, I've been able to compete at a number of fairs across the country. I'm really fortunate to have friends that are very supportive of me, just as my parents are.
About the visor, Tiffany says she hopes to develop it on a much larger scale so that it can help as many as possible. And she's working on getting a patent for it. But hold on, if you think her invention is impressive, wait until you hear what she's doing to get other girls interested in STEM.
My best friend, her name is Shreya. We were the only girls in my entire computer science class. We realized that we needed to get more girls involved in science, especially computer science. The next year, we founded Girls Who Code at our school, and we were able to create a community where a lot of girls are able to show their passion for STEM and work together on projects. We mentor children from 2nd to 4th grade. Working with kids has been really rewarding. It's really beautiful to see their passion. And it's also like a full circle moment for me, because I remember the passion that I had when I was a young kid and the potential that they have to change the future. Competing in science fair, I recognized that there were not a lot of people who looked like me. Frankly, it inspired me to bring a more diverse base of students into the science fair. So I started an initiative called Future Discovery, which aims to make research more accessible for high school students. I've been able to reach over 1,000 people worldwide. And if you already have a passion for something, whatever that may be, I encourage every single student to pursue that. Continue to ask questions and ask the people around you who can help you to develop your passion, because it can definitely take you far and it can take you places that you never imagined.
Imagine finding a piece of this in your living room.
Looks like something I broke. What is it?
Great question. It's actually a piece of the International Space Station that ended up inside someone's house last month. Yeah, this object was released on purpose from the ISS 3 years ago. It should have burned up in the Earth's atmosphere on its way back down from space, but instead it crashed through a home in Florida. Luckily, no one was hurt, but wait, you might be thinking what I am. What is the International Space Station?
Great question, Kelsey. It is a spacecraft that's been orbiting Earth since the year 2000. Picture a 5-bedroom house floating in space, traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. Astronauts from all over the world live there to go on explorations and conduct experiments to learn more about space and our solar system.
I love it. And the ISS fits about 6 to 10 people at a time. It's moving so fast that it orbits the Earth every 90 minutes. If you saw it on Earth, it would cover an entire football field. Yeah.
But how do you get something like that into space?
Oh, no worries. I have the answer to that question. Well, it wasn't built all at once. Construction started in 1998, but the first crew didn't arrive until 2 years later, and astronauts have been living on it ever since.
Right now, there are science labs on it from the United States, Russia, Japan, and Europe. Living on the ISS is a lot different than living here on Earth. Astronauts live in what's called microgravity, which means things, and people, don't stay on the ground like they do on Earth. Astronauts float around, and even their food has to be strapped to a table.
There's also no refrigeration, so all of the food is vacuum packed, and some of it even comes in the form of a powder that you have to add water to.
Just add water, baby. Right now, there are 7 astronauts on board studying how microgravity affects the body and how to grow cells in space.
Wow. Have you ever heard this sound? Well, yep, this spring, that sound might be as loud as a jackhammer. That never stops. What's going to cause all this noise? Let's get back to that question of the day. Do you know the name of the noisy bug that will emerge in record numbers this spring? Is it bees, cicadas, moths? The answer is cicadas. Yep, cicadas are insects that live underground and normally come out in the spring. And this year, 2 broods or litters of cicadas are surfacing at the same time. Scientists are calling it a dual emergence. It's happening to states across the Midwest and the Southeast, and it means more than 1 trillion cicadas will be flying around. A double emergence like this hasn't happened since 1803, and it won't happen again until the year 22 45. The cicadas will come out when the ground hits about 64 degrees Fahrenheit, so that should be around any day. Oopsies. The cicadas.
Was there something usable in that?
The cicadas will come out when the ground hits 64 degrees Fahrenheit, so kind of any day now. And the bugs will fly around for about 4 to 6 weeks before they die. For those 6 weeks, they'll be looking for a mate, which is why they make that loud buzzing sound. If the thought of 1 trillion bugs makes you want to crawl under your covers and hide, don't worry, Larry. They're harmless to humans. They don't sting or bite or carry any diseases. They're actually a nice little snack for the birds and good for the soil when they decompose. Stop making that face. We love cicadas.
Double emergence sounds more like a double annoyance if you ask me. Nasty. We all know the saying, treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, it turns out treating other people with kindness is scientifically proven to make you feel better. Hey, what do you know? We're talking about micro acts of kindness, which are small gestures of compassion. A study from a research initiative called the Big Joy Project,
It must be a great place to work. Can you imagine? What are you working on? Big Joy, what do you do?
found that people who do micro acts of kindness experience a 25% increase in their well-being throughout the week. So what is a micro act of kindness? Well, you could volunteer in your community, organize a surprise for a friend, or hey, even just paying a compliment to a stranger. You're doing great, Larry. You read this news story so well. So we want to know, are you or your friends doing micro acts of kindness in your community? And what are they? Send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com and we might even come see you in action.
And before we go, we want to wish a happy Passover to anyone who is observing the holiday right now. Passover is a Jewish holiday that started earlier this week and lasts for 8 days.
It honors the story of Moses leading the Jewish people out of slavery in Egypt. And as the story goes, they left in such a hurry, there was no time for their bread to rise. So people observe Passover, eat unleavened bread called matzah during the holiday. That's it for our show. And special thanks to our new co-host, Kelsey. What'd you think? It's a wrap on your first show.
Listen, it's a dream come true. And at this dream, I'm wishing everyone a great weekend.
You want to do it again next Friday?
I think so.
If she'll be here, I'll be here, so you should be here. So leave us a like and subscribe and catch our next episode next Friday.
Let's dance.
It's National Space Day and we found a space dog. Not this space dog, but we'll tell you all about it.
We've also been watching the protests going on across college campuses. We're going to explain what's going on and why they're happening.
And this kid governor from Oregon has some advice for the upcoming elections.
Pick a platform that you're actually really passionate about, because then it's like easier for your listeners to connect with you.
I'm Larry.
And I'm Kelsey.
And this is First Stop News.
Hey everybody, this is a whole new episode that we know you're going to like.
And subscribe.
Because today, the first Friday in May, is National Space Day. It's an entire day dedicated to everything about our universe.
Space, the first stop frontier.
While this whole show isn't about space, obviously our question of the day has to revolve around something up there.
It does feel right to have a space-themed question today. What is the surface of the moon made up of? Is it regolith, monolith, or neolith? Which one do you think it is?
I'm gonna definitely have to go with Neo.
Okay, that's a pretty good one.
I know, I'm feeling it.
I don't even have a clue. So why don't you take a guess, hold on to your answer, and we'll tell you if you're right, and I'll find out too.
There has been a lot of tension across college campuses for over a week now, and we're going to explain what's going on.
Pro-Palestinian encampments have popped up across more than 30 universities and colleges since mid-April. They're demanding the schools divest or separate themselves from companies and educational programs that support Israel or are profiting from the invasion in Gaza. They also want an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Some of the encampments have remained peaceful. Some escalated to building takeovers, and others have turned violent. Thousands of people across the country have been arrested in connection to these protests.
I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes. It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law.
While the academic year is almost over, these protests have resulted in campus closures, canceled classes, and hybrid courses to keep students safe. We'll let you know any updates for this developing story. Remember, if you have any questions, send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com.
You may also be wondering if there's any update on a possible ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. Earlier this week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is in the Middle East, said,
"There is a very strong proposal on the table right now. Hamas needs to say yes and needs to get this done."
It's been reported the new deal would pause fighting for 6 weeks, Israel would free Palestinian prisoners, and Hamas would release hostages still being held in Gaza since October 7th. It would also allow for more humanitarian aid to come into the country and let Palestinians in the south return to their homes in the north.
If no deal is agreed upon, Israel's prime minister says they'll continue with their plans to fight. Hamas has said they want a permanent ceasefire and a total withdrawal of Israeli troops in Gaza. As of this show, Hamas has not yet agreed to the deal.
Zimbabwe, a country in southern Africa, is in a dangerous drought. More than half of the population of Zimbabwe lives in rural areas where they grow and sell their own food. For that system to work, they need a certain amount of rainfall to help the crops grow. But it's been a very dry year, which means millions of people don't have enough food to eat. The president recently declared a state of disaster and asked for $2 billion in assistance from other countries around the world. The United Nations says it's working with Zimbabwe to try and make that happen. Zambia and Malawi, two neighboring countries, are suffering from the same drought. So why isn't the normal rainfall happening? It's because of a weather phenomenon called El Nino, where the normal wind patterns are disrupted and causes extreme weather. In this case, it's causing warmer ocean temperatures that's leading to a lack of rain. But in other parts of the world, the warmer water temperatures can cause hurricanes, wildfires, or extreme snow. El Nino also contributes to global warming because warmer water temperatures mean warmer air temperatures. The good news is there are humanitarian organizations from all parts of the world that are jumping in to help. If you're looking to help kids in Zimbabwe in particular, you can go to savethechildren.org to get involved.
Now this video of the day is a good one. Get into these.
Do this.
Check out this amazing video of the day. Get into these 70 Mojave Desert tortoises being reintroduced into the wild in Southern California.
This tortoise breed has been categorized as critically endangered, mainly because the land they live on has been deteriorating. And the desert tortoise populations have declined by an estimated 90% in the last 20 years. But now, scientists at the San Diego Zoo Alliance have been working hard to bring them back. How did they do it? For 1 year, the baby tortoises received a combination of indoor and outdoor care. This process sped up their growth and prepared them for threats from predators in the wild.
Being able to be with them from step one in our care and seeing them go from such a fragile state to being re-released and looking around, sniffing around and knowing exactly what to do and how to be a grown-up tortoise has been pretty exciting, and I feel nothing but proud.
The desert tortoise hibernates for 9 months. It's called brumation. Now that it's spring, they're awake and back in their natural habitat. These particular tortoises are still being cared for because scientists are currently conducting health assessments and will continue to monitor how they're doing back home. This is Zoya Shah. She's Oregon's kid governor.
She's also a 5th grader at Finley Elementary School in Beaverton, Oregon. She loves reading Harry Potter books, making art, and being governor.
Well, Oregon has a program where each elementary school in the state can enter one student candidate into an election. And 5th graders across the state vote through paper ballots.
The program is part of a national one that's also in other states like New Hampshire and Connecticut.
Zoya told us what it's like to run for office and why it was important for her campaign to help kids with anxiety.
My name is Zoya, and I am running for Oregon Kid Governor.
It was probably the best thing ever in my life so far. It's not like as scary as it sounds, but it's really fun, all of this, and it was awesome running for it.
My platform is about creating mental health awareness and acceptance in kids.
I do have anxiety, and I got a lot of support from my parents when I couldn't really put a name to it, and together we kind of worked together and we found ways that could help me.
And that's why I'm here, to ensure no kid who is suffering has to fight this alone.
I realized that some other kids may also be going through this, but they may not have the same support that I did. So I ran for kid governor so I could help others who may not exactly know what they're going through. My 3-point plan is the CIA action plan.
Create awareness, identify the trigger, and then act and provide support. Remember, a vote for Zoya is a vote for a happy Hugh.
We have a very special announcement today. We have one of our 5th graders who has won Oregon's Kid Governor.
Yeah, I didn't fully process what was going on, and I was kind of in pure shock. I was so surprised. I was there, but my mind was a million miles away.
That you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Kid Governor to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I did.
Congratulations.
I got inaugurated in January, and after that, I was the keynote speaker at the Oregon Youth Summit, which was really awesome. I was the youngest person there, and they had to find a stool for me because the thing I was supposed to speak on was too tall. My club is called Mighty Minds. It's where anyone can come and share what they're going through. I've already started my school branch of this. I'm going to make an online one so everyone can join too with my cabinet members. We create more awareness about mental health. I used to be very timid and quiet and shy, but I think I realized that it was all just in my mind. I'm not really that quiet, and I can talk to people, and I'm more confident too.
Wait, Kelsey, we're in the middle of an election year, so what's your advice for any of the candidates running?
To anyone who is running for governor or anything, don't give up. You got this. Have faith in yourself. And pick a platform that you're actually really passionate about, because then it's easier for your listeners to connect with you.
We had to ask if a life in politics is something she wants to pursue. And she said she's 50-50 right now. She may want to become a psychiatrist.
State governor, psychiatrist. State governor, psychiatrist. I'm going governor. Remember that dog we told you about earlier? Its name is Spirit. It's a robot dog on a mission. Spirit is being trained to walk on the moon and on Mars.
This video shows it navigating a simulation on Mount Hood in Oregon, going through extreme conditions it could encounter when out of this world. The idea is to teach robots how to cope with different terrains, like soft ground or hard or rocky surfaces.
Kind of similar to the way that when we walk on uneven surfaces as humans, we can sort of detect how the ground is shifting beneath our feet. A legged robot is capable of the exact same thing. And what's very cool is that scientists are interested in that data because it tells us things about how that planetary surface formed and how it moves and how it might move in the future.
Now that we get what Spirit's doing, let's answer our question of the day. We asked, what is the surface of the moon made of? We had a couple different liths going on. Is it regolith, monolith, or neolith? You picked neolith, I think.
I was a neolith girl for sure.
I didn't know which lith it was. Turns out, it's regolith! Ah! Regolith is loose rock mineral and glass fragments in the soil. On Earth, regolith comes from weather, but on the moon, it's from meteorites' impact. The regolith on the moon is a rubble pile of charcoal gray powdery dust and rocky debris.
This project, called the Lassie Project, is preparing robots to walk on this kind of surface. The project is led by the University of Southern California with funding from NASA. The hope is that future machines like this will be able to explore space alongside humans.
It's now time to weigh in on a controversy that is tearing this nation apart, dividing households, breaking up friendships. I may be being a little bit dramatic. You're gonna have a hot take on this. Do you change your clothes when you get home from school or after you do an outside activity? Some people have outside clothes and inside clothes. Why? Well, germs, of course. Apparently, it's pretty common for people who don't want to bring germs into their house to change their clothes as soon as they get home. But is this just a habit? Or is it actually gross to wear the same outfit from your day into your house? According to a medical expert, the germs on your clothes aren't all that dangerous when it comes to actually getting sick. And if you really want to be as clean as possible, it's more important to wash your hands when you get home than it is to change your outfit. But your shoes, uh-oh. I always wear my shoes indoors. Your shoes are a different story. I used to always wear my shoes indoors. According to a study in 2016, there are hundreds and thousands of bacteria on your shoes, and that 90% of it transfers directly to my floor? Ew. In some cultures, especially in parts of Asia, it's actually considered bad luck if you wear your outdoor shoes inside the house. So if you hate the idea of changing your clothes when you get home from school, maybe just take off your shoes before you walk inside. But we want to know, do you think it's gross to wear your outside clothes inside the house? Either way, send us an email at hi@firststopnews.com and tell us your routine. And take your shoes off before you do.
You know, we've got that last bit of info for you.
We always do.
We always do, because this weekend is the 150th Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs. The annual horse race is the longest continuously held sporting event in America. Lots of people get all dressed up with big hats and fancy suits and wait to watch one of 20 horses go for the first in what's known as the Triple Crown.
The track is 1¼ miles long and typically lasts about 2 minutes. The horses are thoroughbreds and must be 3 years old, not older and not younger. And the winning horse of the main race will take home $3.1 million. Do you think you'll be watching? All right, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for checking us out. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you again in the next one.
You ready?
Always. I'm Larry.
And I'm Kelsey.
And this is First Stop News. Hey everyone, happy first full week of May, which, by the way, starts Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, also known as AAPI Month.
The month celebrates the culture and contributions of Asians and Pacific Islanders to the U.S. It actually started as only 1 week of celebration when then President Jimmy Carter signed it into law in 1978. In 1992, Congress officially designated the entire month of May as AAPI Heritage Month. If you want to learn more, you can go to your local library and check out some resources, or go to AsianPacificHeritage.gov.
Have you heard of Pompeii? It's an ancient city that was destroyed by a volcano a long time ago. There's been some incredible new discoveries there, but we will tell you all about that later.
Our question of the day is, where was the ancient city of Pompeii? Got it? We'll reveal the answer in a bit.
It's been a long week of extreme storms from the south to the Midwest, starting with tornadoes and followed by flooding.
Michigan and Tennessee have been hit the hardest as tornadoes tore through houses and highways on Tuesday and Wednesday. All flights were stopped at Nashville International Airport in Tennessee, but it's up and running now.
In Kalamazoo, Michigan, 50 people were trapped and then rescued from a FedEx facility when a tornado touched down on Tuesday. These storms are also dumping rainwater on top of the tornado damage and creating flooding conditions.
As of now, severe weather warnings are still in effect across the South and Midwest. The Red Cross has also set up some disaster shelters that you can find on their site. But make sure to check local weather services and see how you and your neighbors can stay safe.
We've been telling you what's been going on in the war between Israel and Hamas, and we have another update.
This week, Israel's military took control of the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing. Rafah is a city in the south of Gaza where most of the Palestinians live, and where the people from the northern part of the city have evacuated to since the war began.
Israel has said this was an important step in taking down Hamas, which is the group in charge of Gaza. This crossing, which is now closed, is between Gaza and Egypt, and it was important for getting much-needed aid into the region.
The responsibility to open that crossing and make sure that it is running effectively right now is a responsibility of the government of Israel, which is why we have made clear to them that they need to open the crossing as soon as possible and make sure that aid deliveries can come in.
Israel has been attacking the area and urged Palestinians to evacuate. In response, the U.S. paused a shipment of weapons that it was planning on sending to Israel. A reminder, Israel is an American ally, meaning the U.S. has been sending military weapons to the country.
U.S. President Joe Biden told CNN in an interview on Wednesday that he would stop some shipments of weapons to Israel if it launches a bigger attack in Rafah.
They go into Rafah. I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
All of this comes as ceasefire talks continue. Earlier this week, Hamas agreed to a ceasefire proposal, but it was not the same one Israel had agreed to. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that proposal was, quote, far from Israel's essential demands.
Negotiations are still continuing as of this show. We'll let you know if anything new develops. And as always, if you have any questions, send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com. A couple weeks ago, we told you that the president signed a bill that could possibly ban TikTok in the United States.
The bill forces ByteDance to divest or sell TikTok to a US-based owner, which would make it a US company. But if ByteDance doesn't sell the app within a year, TikTok would be pulled from app stores in the US.
Well, now TikTok and its parent company ByteDance have officially taken action and sued the US government, which means TikTok is taking this to court and wants a judge to decide if this bill is legal.
They say the potential ban unfairly singles the app out, and that the law is unconstitutional and goes against the First Amendment. The First Amendment guarantees Americans the right to free speech, a free press, freedom of religion, and the right to assemble peacefully and petition the government for change.
TikTok says divesting is, quote, simply not possible in the time frame, and its parent company doesn't want to sell.
The US government believes China could be using the app to illegally access data from users here in the US. And they're also concerned that China's government could control the app's algorithm and influence what type of content US users see. TikTok CEO has testified that's not true.
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government.
China is an authoritarian state, which means the government controls almost everything, which is different than the US. The US is a democracy, which means the people have a say by voting in how the government is run. We'll let you know what happens next.
All right, Kels, are you a Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw?
You know, I feel like the main character energy, I'm Gryffindor.
That's nice. I'm a recovering Slytherin, aspiring Gryffindor. Wizards, get this. Our picture of the day is this rare version of a Harry Potter book. It sold earlier this year for $14,000 at an auction.
We're talking about an uncorrected proof, which basically means it was one of the first printed drafts of the original story. It's of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or as it's known in the UK where the auction took place, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Sounds fancy.
Right? And you can actually tell the difference. An inside page says it's written by J.A. Rowling and Joanne Rowling, not J.K. Rowling.
The book was originally bought for pennies at a secondhand bookshop.
Earlier in the show, we told you May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. In honor of AAPI, Mattel created a one-of-a-kind, brand new Barbie.
Oh, hey, Barbie.
Oh, hey, Ken.
The iconic Barbie brand has added a new face to its inspiring women's series. The legendary ice skater Kristi Yamaguchi, who made a history in 1992 for being the first Asian American woman to ever win an Olympic gold medal for figure skating. The doll is fully outfitted in her winning Olympic costume, from her white skates to her black leotard, even to her gold embellishments.
Many of you watching right now may not know who Kristi is, but she paved the way for so many aspiring skaters and athletes.
Kristi retired from competition after her win, but she still performs and has started her own foundation called the Always Dream Foundation, which promotes reading for young kids at home. But that also makes me think, Kelsey, what would we look like if we were Barbies?
Well, you'd be Ken. I'd be Barbie.
Good point.
Okay, are you ready to travel back 2,000 years?
Let's go.
Well, there's been some new discoveries from an ancient city called Pompeii, and they give us a glimpse at what life might have been like back then. Before we tell you what they found, let's answer the question of the day. We asked, where was the ancient city of Pompeii?
And I know the answer is in...
You're supposed to say Greece.
Greece?
Nope. It's in Italy. It was actually near a volcano called Mount Vesuvius, which erupted in 79 AD and buried the city in volcanic ash. Archaeologists have been excavating or digging up Pompeii for hundreds of years, and they recently found a collection of frescoes. Yeah, I also had to look up the word frescoes, and frescoes are watercolor paintings done on a wall. Experts say these paintings are some of the finest to ever emerge from the ruins of Pompeii. The walls have paintings of Greek mythological figures. One fresco even depicts Paris and Helen, whose supposed love for one another caused the Trojan War. Very, very messy.
The illustrations were found on the walls of a huge dining hall with a gorgeous white tile floor. And the walls were likely painted black to hide smoke stains from oil lamps when they entertained. So we know some of the people of Pompeii ate their meals in luxurious dining halls surrounded by these handmade paintings. Hey, Kelsey.
Yeah.
This dog is having a very positive impact on his community.
Ruff, ruff.
Meet Max III. He's the mayor of a town in Southern California called Idlewild. Idlewild is unincorporated, which means that all the town's business is done through the county, so the town's never had or needed its own mayor before.
So how did this dog exactly become mayor?
I am so glad you asked. Kelsey, it all started one day, about 12 years ago, which would put us in 2012.
Yes, come on, math.
Phyllis Mueller, who had recently moved to Idlewild, saw an ad from a local animal shelter creating an election for Idlewild's town mayor as a fundraiser. To be on the ballot, you had to be a pet. To vote, humans had to pay $1 per vote. Mueller told us she jumped at the chance to enter her dog. His name was Max I, and he won the election by a landslide. And since then, Mueller has continued to enlist her golden retrievers. Today, Mayor Max III is at the helm.
People come from all over the world to see Max. Mueller told us when people meet him, they say, "This is the best day of my life." She also said that Max has a message for you. Be positive, be kind, be loving, and do good for others. So we want to know, what do you think of Mayor Max? Would you want your pet to be the mayor of your town?
Yes. The answer is almost always yes.
If so, like Larry, send us a picture of your pet to hi@firststopnews.com.
And before we forget, Mother's Day is this weekend. And we are excited to share some photos of you all, like Samuel and Freddie with their mom, Linda,
Claire and Ellis with their mom, Whitney,
Danielle with Chloe and Madeline, and some of us here at First Stop News with those important women in our lives.
So this is your reminder to tell your mothers, grandmothers, and women who love and treat you like their own, thank you, and give them a big hug, even if it's virtual.
That reminds me, I gotta call my mom. Kelsey, you wanna call yours?
Definitely not a bad idea.
Ma, I need $20.
I'm just gonna FaceTime.
Done.
The Rubik's Cube is turning 50 this month.
And this is Tommy. He's a world champion cuber. We're gonna talk to him a little more in a bit. I'm Larry.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Tommy.
And this is First Stop News.
We've got a little bit of a running theme throughout today's show. In honor of the Rubik's Cube milestone, we'll not only be talking to a world champion cuber, but we're also taking part in our own very mini cubing competition.
So it makes sense the question of the day would be about the cube, don't you think?
Oh, I absolutely do.
Our question is, who developed the Rubik's Cube? Was it a scientist, an architect, or a 12-year-old kid? We'll tell you all about it in a bit, but first,
let's get into some news. Southern Brazil is having its worst flooding in 80 years. It's happening in and around the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which borders Uruguay and Argentina. It started last week when heavy rainfall destroyed towns, highways, and bridges. There were massive power outages and people couldn't access clean water. This is an airport where the runway is completely underwater. Brazil's rainy season is typically around December to April, but this rain has been extreme, and unfortunately, it's not over yet. There's still more rain in the forecast, which means water levels could continue to rise. Many people have died and hundreds of thousands have lost their homes to the floods. But there's good news. A lot of people have also been rescued. Boat crews and helicopters have been able to save people from their homes. Even a horse was saved after being stranded on a rooftop for 2 days. The Brazilian government just approved billions of dollars in emergency relief spending, and President Biden said the US will also be able to send aid.
There was a major light show going on in the night sky that made for some awesome shots and some wild colors. It's called the Northern Lights, and usually these are only visible near the North and South poles, but this week a massive solar storm pushed the lights much farther south than usual. People saw them in multiple parts of the US and even in areas of Europe and Mexico. The Northern Lights are known as Aurora Borealis near the North Pole, and the Southern Lights are called Aurora Australis. They are produced by energized particles coming off the sun that create a beautiful effect in the Earth's atmosphere. Solar activity is at its peak right now, which typically happens every 11 years. These storms could continue until the cycle ends, but it's not as likely that so many places will continue to see the colorful sky after this week. There's no reason to be concerned though. This solar activity doesn't affect us, but it can knock out power grids and satellites, like reports that some farming equipment broke down.
This is going to be a fun run. Absolutely fun run.
Our video of the day is from the Agility Championship at the Westminster Dog Show. This dog is named Nimble, which means agile, so they really nailed that one.
Hold on, there we go. Get to the backside. There it is, that was a great turn. The crowd is going crazy. Cynthia's way out ahead. You got to get this dog on. They do. Are they going to get a sub 30?
Oh my.
Look at this.
They will.
They do.
This 6-year-old from Maryland won the competition with a time of 28.76 seconds.
Nimble is the first All-American dog to win, so she's not a purebred, she's a mixed breed. This Agility Championship is part of Westminster Week, which includes the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show.
And which dog won?
The Best in Show winner at the 148th Annual Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show is the miniature poodle.
This 3-year-old poodle named Sage is the reigning top dog. She beat out more than 2,500 other dogs from 200 different breeds. Each dog is judged by how closely they compare to their specific breed's official standard. The whole thing is a process of elimination, and the winning dog is named best in show.
This may be known as the most difficult puzzle in the world, but once you get your hands on a Rubik's Cube, you may never be able to put it down.
Celebrating its 50th anniversary this month, the Rubik's Cube has been fascinating and frustrating fans for years. With over 500 million cubes sold, it's the best-selling toy around the world.
Hello guys, my name is James. I'm 10 years old and I live in New York City. My favorite type of Rubik's Cube is the 3x3.
Out of all my cubes, I'd have to say my favorite type of cube is a 2x3.
The thing I love most about cubing is just that you can just keep getting better and better.
My favorite puzzle is the 2x2. I like this puzzle because it's fun and easy to learn.
There is a whole world of speed cubers out there competing to solve the puzzle in record-breaking times.
And this is Tommy Cherry. Tommy is not only a world champion cuber, but he's also a Guinness World Record holder for solving a cube blindfolded.
So tell us a little bit about your background with the cube. When did you first find one? How did you fall in love with it?
When I was 10 years old, I saw a video tutorial my friend made on YouTube for how to do the 2x2 Rubik's Cube. You know, I was really intrigued and kind of went down this rabbit hole. It took me about a month to actually figure it out. Once I learned, I was pretty hooked and striving to get faster and faster, and that's kind of how it's been ever since then.
How many cubes do you have?
Over time, I've probably owned like 400 or 500 total. I mean, I like all of them, but I think my favorite event to do in competitions is 3x3 blindfolded. It's just the one that I've always found the most fun and just the one I'm most naturally adept at.
So what is your actual world record?
Currently, I hold the world record for Rubik's Cube blindfolded single and average. My best for a single solve is 12.00 seconds, which is the current world record. And my best for an average of 3 different solves in blindfolded is known as the mean. The mean of 3 is 14.15 seconds, which is also currently a world record.
Tell me about the process of doing it blindfolded and non-blindfolded.
When solving it normally without a blindfold, you're kind of focusing on certain areas of the cube. But the thing about blindfolded is that you start in a certain place on the cube. That place is known as your buffer. We memorize a string of letters and make words out of those letters to make it easier to memorize. And once we have this full string of words, then we can put our blindfold on and convert those words back to the algorithms that we're actually going to do, because different words correspond to different algorithms.
How do you deal with frustration or with failure if you don't end up winning at one of these events?
Or solving a cube your first time opening it out of the box.
The general mindset I like to have is that, you know, there will be more chances in the future. So even though I may be frustrated in the moment, if I take a small break to let it settle down and then come back in full swing, usually it ends up, you know, getting better eventually.
Is there anything that you feel like is misunderstood about the cube?
One thing is that you actually don't really have to be good at math to solve it. It's a very common misconception that you have to be a genius to solve a cube. There are actually hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world who have been able to figure it out. Another misconception is that when you solve the cube, you kind of go one side at a time, like you make all the white, for example, then all the blue. But that's not quite how it works. You have to account for the positions of the pieces.
What has cubing really taught you about yourself?
It's kind of just like really taught me to push my limits, and it's allowed me to realize I can do a lot more things than, you know, I may have thought I was capable of a long time ago.
Tommy, thank you so much. And later on, Tommy is going to show us a thing or two about cubing. Have you ever seen one of these? It's called a Venus flytrap. They appeared about 65 million years ago, just after dinosaurs went extinct, and they're still around today.
But maybe not for long. Some conservationists are worried that they could be endangered.
Wait a minute, Kelsey, can plants be endangered?
Oh, I'm gonna get to that, okay? Most plants get nutrients from the soil, but the Venus flytrap is a carnivorous plant.
You nailed it though.
Right? Carnivorous. Carnivorous.
Doobie-doobie-doo-wop.
Most plants get nutrients from soil, but the Venus flytrap is a carnivorous plant. It actually thrives in places where the soil isn't great. Instead, they get their nutrients by tricking insects into landing onto them and then eating those insects.
They only grow naturally in one place in the US, the wetlands of North and South Carolina. A lot of that same land is being developed into vacation spots or even golf courses, which means the Venus flytrap population is starting to dwindle.
Back in 2020, the plant was listed as vulnerable, but the US government rejected the idea of listing it as officially endangered.
Conservationists are warning that the development of the wetlands is ruining their habitat, so over time, something will need to be done or they're gonna go extinct.
In just a minute, we're going to enter into our own Rubik's Cube competition with Tommy Cherry. Do you think we have a chance?
I do. I really do. I've been stretching. I've been cracking my fingers.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. But first, we want to know who developed the Rubik's Cube.
Oh, was it a scientist? Or maybe an architect? Or a 12-year-old kid? The correct answer? An architect.
A Hungarian architecture professor, Erno Rubik, created the prototype in 1974 and used it to teach his students about three-dimensional spaces. In 1980, it got its official name, the Rubik's Cube, and history was made.
Today, there are cubing competitions all over the world with this toy. It has over 43 quintillion possibilities.
That's a lot.
It's definitely more than I can count. So, that being said, I'm ready to compete. Are you?
I said it once, and I'll say it again. I'm not really sure. So we thought it'd be fun to have our very own first Rubik's Cube competition on set together. And we made this table look official as possible, thanks to Tommy. So, y'all ready for it?
I'm ready.
So I've scrambled Tommy's, you've scrambled Kelsey's, and Kelsey has scrambled mine.
I'll use this timer and put my hands on it when we're ready to start so that we can treat it just like a real competition. First, we get a few seconds to inspect the puzzle and just plan out the first thing we're gonna do. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
We got him on the ropes.
Yeah, I heard that. Oh, don't slip up, Tommy.
Close.
Okay, so that took how long for you to beat us?
9.71 seconds.
All right, well, it was nice while it lasted. Let's even the odds a little bit, Kelsey. You brought your blindfolded here. Try that, and we will continue on our journey with our Rubik's Cubes.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
I don't like the sound of that either.
I used to think this was, relaxing. Now it's making me nervous.
Wait, we're...
Yeah, it's 14.10 seconds.
And these are our Rubik's Cubes. Congratulations, Tommy.
Thanks.
There is some green news about our planet. According to new data, last year 30% of the world's electricity was made from renewable energy. This is a big deal because it's a new record.
So what does this mean? Renewable energy comes from natural sources like wind and sunlight. It's often referred to as clean energy. This kind of energy is constantly replenished because it's all around us.
Fossil fuels, on the other hand, are non-renewable resources like coal, oil, and gas. These sources take hundreds of millions of years to form. When fossil fuels are burned to produce energy, they release greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. And the emissions from these greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere, which causes global warming and climate change.
According to Ember, which is a climate and energy research institute, solar was the fastest growing source of electricity in 2023.
The institute predicted that there will be more demand for clean energy in the next decade.
So, we want to know.
We do.
Do you use renewable energy like solar power in your home? What's been your experience with renewable energy? Let us know through shooting us an email to hi@firststopnews.com.
Well, Kelsey, it's been a whole show, and I still haven't solved this thing yet.
Larry, me and you will be here for another 50 years.
But we will also be here next week, and we hope to see you on First Stop News.
Thanks for coming.
You think Tommy would have helped us out a little bit, at least giving us one with a hack?
Yeah, he charges for his sessions.
Yeah.
Nice sandwich.
Hi. This is a taco.
I guess. And this is First Stop News. Reading is it. So of course we ask you all what books you think we should be reading this summer. Here's what we got.
My first one is Dragon Kingdom of Renly. I like this one because there's a lot of dragons and it's action-packed and fun. The next one is Trapped in a Video Game series. This is a chapter book, and I like this book series because I like video games and virtual reality.
This summer, I think you guys should read the book Wonder. It's all about a boy named August, and his face looks different than others. He shows everyone and himself that it matters what's in the inside instead of the outside.
My favorite book, personally, is The Babysitter's Club. Marianne Saves the Day. I like this book because when the babysitters get into a huge fight, Marianne is left to her own devices. She became from nervous to self-confident. It reminded me of many experiences I had throughout my life. I also like this book because she made a new friend and a new crew member of the Babysitters Club.
And the book I recommend to read over the summer is Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi. Just trust me, you're gonna love it.
We also have some pretty good suggestions from a cool California bookshop, which we're going to tell you all about. But first, our question of the day is something to chew on. What makes a sandwich a sandwich? It's a serious question. Is it just meat between two pieces of bread? Or is it something more than that?
You see, people love to try to define the true identity of this handheld meal. Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
No, I think a hot dog is a hot dog. Hence why we call it a hot dog.
Okay, I think it's a sandwich.
Here we go.
Here we go. But now, another menu item has entered the chat and broadened the debate.
We'll explain why later, but first, you have to decide. Is a taco a sandwich? Yes or no? Think about it while we tell you about this next story.
There's a lot going on around the world, and we're starting with Iran. A helicopter carrying the country's president and several others crashed earlier this week, and unfortunately, there were no survivors. The president was returning from an official event when his helicopter crashed over an area full of mountains.
Also on board the helicopter was Iran's foreign minister. It's been reported that the cause was technical failure, but there was also an intense fog in the area, and extreme weather made it hard for first responders to find the wreckage.
Iran is a theocracy, which is a type of government, and it means a country's political leader is also its religious leader, known as the supreme leader. The president is the second highest ranking official in Iran.
The supreme leader has declared 5 days of national mourning, and a public funeral was held on Tuesday. The U.S. offered its condolences, but doesn't believe this will change its relationship with Iran. The ultra-conservative president was a violent leader within the country.
Some of the worst human rights abuses occurred during his tenure as president, especially the human rights abuses against the women and girls of Iran. We will continue to support the people of Iran to defend their human rights.
The first vice president has been named as interim president. He will act as president for 50 days until the mandatory presidential elections in July.
Now let's go to India, which is in the midst of the world's largest election, where about 1 billion people are eligible to vote.
India's current prime minister is looking for a very rare third consecutive win. He's already been in power for 10 years.
In India, the prime minister is selected by the party that has control of parliament. So, if Prime Minister Modi's party wins the most seats, it's expected he'll stay in the role.
Modi's supporters believe he's helped raise India's significance in the world, but his critics say he's not supportive of religious diversity within the country, which is also dealing with the rise of unemployment and inflation.
Different than other democratic countries, voting occurs on 7 different days spread out over 6 weeks. It gives all voters throughout the country an opportunity to vote, like this family who has their own polling station. It also allows for security and safety to be set up.
Voter turnout has not been as strong as past elections. They've also faced violence at some polling stations and this week's extreme heat.
Voting began April 19th and ends on June 1st. Votes will be counted on June 4th.
Wild spring storms are still causing a lot of trouble across parts of the Midwest. Several tornadoes and severe storms ripped through a handful of states, with Iowa hit the hardest. Unfortunately, multiple people were killed and some were injured, and many homes were damaged.
Iowa had at least 17 tornado reports on Tuesday. And between Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, over 80,000 people were without power, but some has now been restored. And cleanup is underway.
Meanwhile, in Texas, thousands are still in the dark after something called a derecho swept through the state last week. A derecho brings strong winds and severe thunderstorms. They think it could take weeks for some power to come back there.
Red Cross disaster teams have set up emergency shelters and brought relief as record heat is expected to move into the area. As always, we hope everybody stays safe.
Did you catch this video? We had to know what was going on here. So we reached out to the woman behind the mask to find out. It turns out this wildlife center treats sick, injured, or orphaned wildlife. And the reason behind this furry disguise was to care for a baby fox.
We've never worn masks for mammals like this fox, but we decided it was important in this case for this particular fox. So this is the mask that we use to feed our foxes. Wearing the mask is important because we didn't want the baby fox to imprint on us, or any animal that is young to associate who they are with their caretaker. And she came in She was a neonate. She had just been born. She may have only been a few hours old. Foxes start to open their eyes around day 14, but the corners of her eyes had started to unseal. And so we were concerned that we might be in the process of feeding her and she might open her eyes. We didn't want the first thing for her to see in the world to be a human, and having that connection be reinforced with food. It's important that particularly animals that are predatory in nature, we encourage them to recognize who they are and their own species. We don't want them to associate people with food or as a mate or a place of comfort. We want them to be afraid of people. When we release them into the wild, to recognize others of their own kind so that they can find mates and they can integrate and continue with their populations.
Summer is right around the corner, which means our birthdays are coming up, but it also means the days of lazily reading by the pool, at the beach, or at home are here.
But mostly, our birthdays.
Duh.
We stopped by Zibby's Bookshop in Santa Monica, California to get some summer reading recs from author Katrina Lino.
My first recommendation for you is Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. If you like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I think you're gonna love this book. It's about a silly, quirky man who comes to a small town and builds a library. And Kyle, our main character, he is gonna try and win the grand prize by escaping on the first night. The Fort is about 5 friends who discover a secret World War II bunker after a hurricane blows through their town and uncovers the entrance. And as they explore the fort, they also explore their friendships and the more serious struggles they have going on through in their own life, and they all become really close. It's a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of an adventure novel, and it's really fun. This is the newest book by Lois Lowry, no relation to you, Larry. She is a great celebrated author of some classics such as The Giver and Number the Stars. I really like this book because it's a beautiful story of intergenerational friendship. And what that means is there are 2 friends and our 2 main characters. They have a big age difference between them. And I really like how this book celebrates differences among friends. And it really shows you that you can become close with people who aren't necessarily like you or didn't grow up where you grew up. This book is called Leva at Last. Leva is a really fun and curious and interesting girl. She lives in kind of a fun and quirky town. It's a real mishmash of characters. And she has one burning question, and that's, what is the point of being a person? And at the end of the book, she comes up with a pretty good answer. If you like graphic novels, which I really do, these are cool because they're both based on book series that started out not as graphic novels. Whatever After is the story of 2 siblings who are sucked through a magic mirror in their basement, and they're transported to a land of fairy tales. They have a lot of really fun adventures. And Spy School is exactly what it sounds like. It's the story of a boy who is recruited to be a spy, which is maybe my dream scenario. So both of these I really like. Perfect summer reading books and great graphic novel options.
You ought to get ready for this next one because it's all about otters.
Ching. Hang on, I can do that again. Ching. Why do you do it? Wait, why can't I think of it? Ching. That's it. It's a da-doom. They're adorable. It's not badoom ching. It's badoom. That's it. Why do you do it? Wait, why can't I think what it was?
Got it. Got it. Yes, another animal story today, but it's also about the environment.
Otters have proven to be incredibly important to the coast of California. A new study suggests these mammals helped the ecosystems in the water they live in. And it's because they ate, and they ate, and they ate. Kelsey and I can relate to that.
No, those otters really ate. And they really love one kind of crab. It's called a striped shore crab.
This crab, 1, sounds delicious, but 2, has been destroying the salt marshes on the California coast near the city of Monterey. They chew the roots of the salt marsh grass. A salt marsh is wetlands that get flooded and drained by the tide. So while the otters were chowing down on these crabs, they were actually slowing erosion.
But get this, back in the 17 and 1800s, otters were hunted for their fur, and they almost went extinct. But now, after decades of conservation, the otter population has grown and has done wonders for certain habitats.
Want to know more about otters? They have the thickest fur, between 60,000 to 1 million hair follicles per square inch. They can stay underwater for more than 5 minutes at a time. They use tools, like a rock, to break open the shells they're eating. Plus, they love to rest in groups. A group of resting otters is called a raft. Otters will even wrap themselves in seaweed to keep from drifting away from each other.
Okay, we know you've been wanting to hear the outcome of our question of the day, which was, is a taco a sandwich?
We asked this very question over on our Instagram, and 91% of you said no! A taco is not a sandwich! Thank you! A taco is not a sandwich. It is a taco. They stay in both their lanes and they know their places.
Well, get this. A judge in Fort Wayne, Indiana disagrees. He ruled a taco is a sandwich.
It came up when someone wanted to open a taco restaurant inside a local shopping center. A policy said, quote, only made-to-order sandwiches could be sold at the shopping center. It was a way to stop fast food restaurants from opening there.
So, to set up the restaurant, it had to prove in court that tacos are in fact sandwiches. The judge ruled in favor of the restaurant and said that made-to-order tacos and burritos were Mexican-style sandwiches.
I like tacos and I like sandwiches, and I don't understand why we just can't have both of them. A taco nurtures its ingredients between it and holds it, like almost like otters in a raft. Is chili a soup?
Yes. You have a line.
Okay. Listen, at the end of the day, call them what you will. Whether you're right or wrong, it really doesn't matter, so long as it's delicious.
Shifting gears, this isn't an ordinary car. It's an off-road solar power car.
A group of college students from the Netherlands built it and named it Stella Terra. They say it's the first car powered from the sun designed for off-road driving.
Solar energy is collected through panels on the roof, so there's no need for gas to fuel it at all.
They call themselves Solar Team Eindhoven, named after a city in the Netherlands famous for invention and technology. What's cool about their solar panels is they're 97% efficient, and most solar panels you've seen on homes are only 20% efficient. The car can reach a max of 90 miles per hour and can travel 341 miles on a sunny day. It can hold 2 passengers, and yes, that includes you. There's no age minimum for riding.
The car has been cleared for operation from the Dutch version of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
The team hopes that car manufacturers can see what they've done and are inspired to create similar energy-efficient models.
It's super cool how these students made their own car. So we want to know, what have you created? What's something you've made at home or at school that you're proud of? Is there something you've always thought about building? Send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com. And before we go, it's Memorial Day weekend.
You may have the day off, but the day is meant to honor those who have died while serving in the U.S. military.
It started all the way back in 1868, when it was originally called Decoration Day.
That's our show for today. Make sure to have a great weekend, and if you could, like and subscribe before you go. We will see you right back here at First Stop News. Did you count the number of puns in the script today?
Yeah, I felt really, really punny today. I think we might have had about, what would you say?
Well, the number is actually...
Azariah, I have to tell you, I'm 23 years old and I still misspell calculator quite often.
How do you spell?
Oh, okay. I would spell calculator CALCULATOR.
That was actually the correct spelling.
Hey everybody, happy almost summer. It's the last week of May, which also happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month. Taking time to talk and think about our mental health is really important. Do you remember Zoya, the kid governor from Oregon? Her whole campaign was all about bringing mental health awareness to kids at school.
I ran for kid governor so I could help others who may not exactly know what they're going through.
It's also a central mission for Rare Beauty founder and singer and actress Selena Gomez. She's been vocal about her struggles with mental health and the importance of self-acceptance. And Rare Beauty has raised over $7 million to help fund mental health initiatives. Earlier this month, she launched a feel-good phone line because sometimes an old-fashioned phone call or a FaceTime can boost your mood.
Studies suggest that hearing a comforting voice can actually boost our mood in ways that texting can't.
Kelsey, who do you call when you're feeling down?
Usually my bestie, my siblings, or my parents. It just depends.
Well, you can always give me a holler if you need.
Oh, Larry, you know that means a lot.
118 new emojis are set to be released over the course of this year.
So, our question of the day, which of these emojis do you think is the most misunderstood? There's an actual answer, but we'll tell you later.
Huge news in the world of college sports. The NCAA and the 5 major conferences, that's the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the SEC, have agreed to a settlement that could pay student athletes for the first time in college sports history.
This is major, right?
Totally, this is huge.
Okay.
Now, the judge still has to approve this because the agreement came as a settlement to 3 lawsuits against the NCAA. Those plaintiffs also have to approve the deal. Want the details?
I think I do.
The agreement says that $2.8 billion will be distributed to current and former athletes who they say lost out on earnings from brand deals. Back in 2021, the NCAA lifted a ban on athletes using their name, image, and likeness to earn money. Name, image, and likeness is the right to make money off of something that identifies you, like a partnership with a brand.
So, before the lift, somebody like a Caitlin Clark who played for Iowa and signed a deal with Gatorade couldn't do that.
Correct. Also, part of this settlement is a proposal for student athletes to earn a percentage of the money their athletic departments make. And D1 athletes going back to 2016 are eligible. But it's not clear if all student athletes will get a cut. College football and basketball bring in the most money, so those players might be the only ones to get payment. Smaller colleges are worried how this will affect their teams that don't bring in as much revenue. And if this is all approved, it probably won't go into effect until fall of 2025.
A devastating landslide hit a small village in Papua New Guinea late last week. The South Pacific island is north of Australia. There are up to 1,000 different ethnic groups within Papua New Guinea, and many have their own languages. In 1975, it gained its independence from Australia. A lot of people have died and thousands have been evacuated. Government officials have formally asked for help from other countries. It will take the country a while to clean up and recover from the landslide fully.
We've told you about a potential TikTok ban before, but if you want a quick reminder, back in April, President Biden passed the law that would ban the app from the US if ByteDance, a Chinese company, doesn't find an American owner for TikTok.
Well, there are some updates. Earlier this month, 8 TikTok creators sued the US government over the new law, similar to TikTok, which filed its own lawsuit against the US government. They're all saying that the law goes against the First Amendment of the Constitution, which says people have the right to free speech. These 8 creators are from all over the country, and each say that TikTok allows them to express themselves and find new ways of thinking.
This isn't just a place where we come to watch funny videos of cats or see the newest dancing trend. This is a place where we are able to connect.
For years, the US government has been saying they have privacy concerns about the app because ByteDance is based in China, and that could give the Chinese government access to US data. According to the new law, ByteDance has 1 year to find a new US owner for TikTok.
Have you ever heard of lab-grown meat?
Yeah, I call it beaker beef.
That's cute, because it's made in a beaker. Well, not really. Lawmakers in Florida and Alabama have made it illegal to create and sell it.
So what is lab-grown meat anyway? It's made from animal stem cells, which are cells that grow into other cells. Basically, they can renew themselves. Scientists then turn those stem cells into muscle, fat, and connective tissue, which keeps multiplying, until finally the stem cells are then layered into the shapes of hamburgers, steak, chicken, and voila! Your lab-grown meat is ready, sir.
It is meat, so it is chicken. It'll taste exactly as you would expect a chicken to taste. So the part that's remarkable about it is we didn't have to raise and slaughter a chicken to get real chicken meat.
Whew, that was a science lesson. But why do we even need this? Supporters of lab-grown meat argue that this could ease the impact of meat production on our climate. It takes a lot of water, land, and food to keep the meat industry alive. And those against it, like the lawmakers in Florida and Alabama, want to protect the rights of those farmers.
We want to know, would you ever eat lab-grown meat, or have you ever tried meat grown in a lab? Let us know through hi@firststopnews.com. There's a Garfield lookalike contest, so grab yourself a big tray of lasagna and check out this video of the day. It all went down in Malaysia, where over 100 cats competed to be called Garfield IRL.
The winner's name is Hera. He's a 3-year-old stray who was adopted as a kitten. The owner said he didn't resemble the character at first, but slowly looked more grumpy as he got older.
This is a very good opportunity for Hara, which is just a stray cat, to join this kind of competition.
He does not look very happy to be there.
They probably held the contest on a Monday.
That part. Azariah Green is one of the 245 kids who made it to the 2024 Scripps National Spelling Bee. The 11-year-old from Mississippi is not only a top speller, he also can play the piano by ear, which we really bonded over our love for gospel music, and he's a red belt in Taekwondo. I got to chat with him before he got to the competition. Azariah, how does it feel to get the chance to compete in the National Spelling Bee?
It feels really good. My favorite part is trying to figure out the spelling of the word through context clues. Ever since I won that county spelling bee back in 2022, I got into spelling bees a lot more.
How many spelling bees have you competed in?
11. I won the class, school, and county in 4th grade, the class and school in 5th grade, and the class, school, county, and state in 6th grade. In the county spelling bee in January, I remember getting the word calculator.
Okay, Azariah, I have to tell you, I'm 23 years old and I still misspell calculator quite often.
How do you spell it?
Oh, okay. I would spell calculator CALCULATOR.
That was actually the correct spelling.
Okay.
It was easy for me because, I like math. Mom calls me the human calculator. I was actually one of the co-champions of the state spelling bee. I remember the last where I got right at the state spelling bee, which was Maleta. M-A-L-E-T-A.
Maleta. What does that even mean?
A rawhide bag.
How do you actually prepare for a spelling bee?
Find some fun ways to study the words. Also through Word Club, an app that reviews the Scripps National Spelling Bee words.
And then how long each day do you study?
Around 30 minutes to an hour or something like that.
Tell me, what advice would you give to kids who want to start entering spelling bee competitions?
I would tell them to work hard. Most importantly, I would want to tell them to have fun with studying the words, like we do.
Want to watch the finals? You can. Tonight on Ion.
Okay. Bugs.
I don't like them.
Okay. But do you know how during the summer they always buzz around the porch lights and lamps and stuff that get electrocuted?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks to a new study, we know they're not actually attracted to the light. Blew my mind too.
Researchers recently observed insects in a couple of ways. One was in the wild where they filmed them in Costa Rica with special cameras, and the other was set up in their lab. They attached tiny markers on moths to see what would happen.
The team recorded their movements with cameras that track motion, like the ones used in video games or movies. These are some of their videos.
Here's what they found. Bugs flutter near lights because they're totally confused. Insects look for the light of the sun to show them which way is up. When they're faced with artificial light, they don't know what to do, and they freak out.
Some even fly upside down and crash. They actually turn their backs to light instead of fly towards it, and then they get all dizzy and trapped. A new report says 80% of Americans are stumped by some emojis. I'll admit, I'm one of them. I actually only send one emoji. Do you want to guess which one it is?
I'm a cowboy.
Yeah.
I like the one with that cowboy hat.
Where did he get the props from? I always wonder.
Exactly.
And while it might seem like a silly statistic, I know you're using emojis to communicate, but if they get misunderstood, that can change the entire meaning of the message.
We asked you which emoji is the most misunderstood. About half of you said it was the puff of smoke, but according to the report, it's this one, the nail painting emoji. Some people think it's used to show something fancy. Others think it represents self-care, and some take it a lot more literally. And some, exactly.
Nailed it.
Some people think it's used to show something fancy. Others think it represents self-care, and some take it a lot more literally, like this Saturday when I got my nails done.
Which one do you use it as?
Oh, I use it as I'm feeling cute,
Other top confusing emojis? The puff of smoke, the upside down face, that's the one we were trying to show you how to do it. It's hard to show on camera. And whatever this guy is. And to complicate conversations even more, 118 new emojis are set to be introduced over the course of 2024. Minecraft, it's celebrating its 15th birthday. More than 162 million people play the game on a monthly basis.
Minecraft is the best-selling game of all time and has racked up over 1 trillion, yes, 1 trillion searches on YouTube.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, and the game is celebrating by giving away free in-game items and release a special map that serves as an in-game museum highlighting moments over its 15-year history. The game is centered around a sandbox world where players create their own worlds or build innovative solutions to challenges.
And the franchise is continuing to grow with a new update scheduled for later this year and a movie starring Jack Black and Jason Momoa arriving in 2025. But we want to know, if you stream Minecraft and want to show off your world, send us an email to hi@firststopnews.com and we could feature you in an upcoming episode.
Okay, that's our show for today. Make sure you give us a like, give us a subscribe, or else, and have a fabulous weekend.
And we'll see you guys again right here on First Stop News.
Set. Oh, wow. Wait, that's cool. Do you think I can do it? Up, over, kick out. Ah, yeah. Okay. Hey, everyone. Today, June 6th, is an important day in history. It marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day. It was a massive operation during World War II where Allied powers, the US, the UK, and Canada, took a huge step to free Europe from Germany's control. More than 150,000 Allied troops landed on the beaches of Normandy, France.
It is the largest water invasion in military history. Thousands of soldiers were killed in the battle, but D-Day helped the Allied powers eventually win the war in 1945.
Today, D-Day is remembered as one of the most important days in World War II.
Major League Baseball has made a major league announcement. Last month, the league said they're now incorporating stats of former Negro League players into its historical records.
But question, do you know who was the first Black baseball player to play in the modern major leagues? Was it Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, or Josh Gibson? Answer to come. Let's get into some news.
Poppy, it's a pretty popular soda right now. It says it's supposed to be better than a regular soda because it has less sugar and contains prebiotics. Prebiotics help good bacteria grow inside your digestive tract, so things are running smoothly.
A lawsuit filed last week says Poppy's drinks have such small amounts of these prebiotics that customers won't actually experience the health benefits. The lawsuit says, quote, a consumer would need to drink more than 4 Poppy sodas daily before potentially noticing any meaningful prebiotic effects.
Basically, it alleges that the amount of Poppy you would have to consume to even feel those prebiotic benefits would have so much sugar, the benefits don't even really exist. So this is your first stop reminder that fruits and veggies are actually the best way to make your stomach happy. And prebiotics are naturally found in foods with fiber like bananas, apples, and onions.
We reached out to Poppy for comment, who told us, in part, the lawsuit is baseless, and they will, quote, vigorously defend against these allegations.
On Tuesday, President Biden signed an executive order dealing with immigration. The policy temporarily blocks someone who wants to seek asylum in the U.S. through entering the border between the U.S. and Mexico. Asylum is a right that grants people protection after leaving their country, and it went into effect yesterday.
We must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now.
The ban will be lifted once the number of illegal crossings goes down to 1,500 people for 7 days, and for 2 weeks after that. Right now, the 7-day average is 2,500, which authorities say is too high.
This action will help us to gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage.
2023 saw a record number of illegal crossings into the U.S. However, in recent months, fewer people have been caught crossing illegally. Experts say that's partly because of more enforcement from Mexico. Those who enter the U.S. illegally do so without prior approval from the U.S. government. Before yesterday, they had the right to claim asylum and stay in the U.S. while their claim was processed. There are a few instances where asylum might still be possible under this ban.
Biden's actions come after a bipartisan border security legislation that didn't pass in Congress earlier this year. The bill was drafted by a group of Republicans and Democrats together.
The border is a key topic in the upcoming presidential race, so we'll keep an eye on this and bring you anything you need to know.
Speaking of elections, let's take a look at how other countries voted around the world this week.
First stop is Mexico, which has elected its first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. Sheinbaum has previously served as the mayor of Mexico City, and before that, she was a renowned climate physicist who was on a UN panel of scientists who received a Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. Sheinbaum is a member of the same party as her predecessor. The election had a lot of violence against candidates, but also saw the largest voter turnout in Mexican history. Scheinbaum won with 60% of the vote.
Second stop is in India. We told you about India's 6-week-long election on the show before, and the results are finally in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was elected to a 3rd term. His party has been in power for the last 10 years, but lost some control in this election. Now, Modi will have to work closer with some of his opponents to get things done. This was the biggest Democratic election in world history, with nearly 1 billion registered voters, which is about an 1/8 of the global population.
Last stop, South Africa. The African National Congress Party, once led by Nelson Mandela, lost its majority hold on power for the first time in 30 years. Nelson Mandela is important because he spent 30 years in prison fighting apartheid, which was a government policy that separated people of different races. After he was freed, he became South Africa's first black president. No political party earned a majority, or more than 50%, of the vote, which will force South Africa to form its first national coalition government, where power is split between groups who have to work together.
Today, in many ways, represents a victory for our democracy as South Africans.
More than 50 parties were represented in the election.
In 2024, 64 countries and the European Union are holding elections, which means about half of the world will have the chance to vote this year, including Americans on November 5th.
The NBA Finals start tonight.
The matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks promises to be a good one, even if the Celtics are slightly favored after a dominating season.
You say that now, but what do we know? Instead, we went to two brothers, JJ and Huddy, who've been reporting all season long on the NBA.
Yo, welcome back to the Kids Sports Reporters. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, second round today.
These kids sports reporters are major Lakers fans, but they have some predictions on what we should expect for the finals.
Thank you, guys. Here we are. He's Huddy, I'm JJ. We're talking about the NBA Finals today. So, Celtics, they're amazing.
As much as we hate to say it, but we have to talk.
We're Lakers fans. Like, look at these jerseys and look at this.
I got to admit, Al Horford's playing great. Derek White is unbelievable right now. He's hitting 20-point games. And then there's Drew Holiday, who can shoot free throws and shoot mid-range. And he's good at attacking the basket.
Tatum and Brown still playing amazing. They're the best team in the NBA.
You're forgetting about Dallas. Dallas is pretty good. They got Luka, who does the step backs. They got Kyrie. And this rookie, Derek Lively, tough as heck, bro. He doesn't give up.
On Dallas Mavericks, they also have role players. P.J. Washington, one of the best players in the playoffs.
And Daniel Gafford. Yeah. Look at his hard dunks.
Gafford. Look at his dunks. Look at his blocks. His heart is amazing. P.J. Washington draining threes, one of the best three-point shooters in the league. And then you have Luka and Kyrie.
Kyrie's game is just...
Kyrie ditched the Celtics. He said he'd stay and win a couple of championships. Then he left, and he's 1-10 since he left against the Celtics. With all that being said, who's going to win?
I say Celtics in 6.
All right, what's the score going to be?
Of what?
Series.
I said Celtics in 6.
Celtics in 6. I'm also going Celtics in 6. Mavericks could win a couple of games because they're really good and they're talented. Thank you for watching us, and back to you guys.
All right, thanks, fellas. Kelsey, who do you have for the finals?
I think Celtics in 7.
Okay, that's a good one. Almost like what they're doing, but a little. I think it's going to be the Mavs in 7, but I think it's going to be tight right up to the end, like 5 points max at the difference.
Totally. Let's go from the NBA to the WNBA. It's no secret that this season has been hugely anticipated. Whether it's the Caitlin Clark effect or the league's evolution, this 28th season is breaking records from selling out arenas and gaining fans.
And one person who's been following along for a while now, Pepper Pursley. She's a 13-year-old reporter who has not only interviewed new stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, but also legends like Sue Bird and Brittany Griner, everywhere from courtside to postgame to her podcast.
She plays basketball herself, taught me some Taekwondo, and let me ask her a whole bunch of questions, including how she got into journalism. How did you even come about the thought at 6 years old, I want to have an interview with an athlete?
My parents took me to WNBA games since I was 2. So I kind of had that experience and I had a lot of questions about it. I had a lot of curiosity. So I think being able to ask those questions really led me to continue to want to highlight those athletes that inspire me.
Do you have a favorite interview that you've done?
I think what's fresh on my mind was doing the WNBA draft. I'm here with Caitlin Clark.
The fit is fitting, right? 4 + 4?
Yes, 8.
Thank you.
Getting to talk to those athletes right before such a pivotal moment in their life, I think was really cool. And that is kind of, I feel like, grown the game, especially for me. A lot of my friends have seen those TikToks that I posted from that. So that's been really cool.
What does it mean to just be a part of this generation of women's basketball that's grown the game so much and inspires girls like me?
It's amazing. I mean, girls like you that look up to us, and I want to be lead by a good example. And I think we've done a good job by that and give you inspiration that you can do the same thing we're doing one day.
Let's talk about how do you prepare for these interviews, right? What does that look like for you?
I'll watch some of what they do, and I like to start off with their journey. So if they were an athlete, if they are an athlete, kind of how they got their start in that, or how they got their start in whatever they're doing. And then I always like to end with asking what advice they have for kids like me.
Thanks, Pepper. I don't know, I just feel like I was that little girl just a short while ago. So I would just say dream big.
Have you gotten a piece of advice that has really resonated with you from one of your guests, and who gave it to you?
I talked to Kelsey Plum, who was someone that I loved watching when I was younger, and I still love watching. It's good to see you, KV. And I think it's just so fun and short, but she said, work hard, have fun, and listen to your parents. My parents are here, and they love that.
Your book, Not to Anything, talks about dreaming big and also being bullied in the 2nd grade. Can you tell me more about the book?
Yeah, I think the book was something that I'd never thought about doing, definitely not at the age I am now. I was like, this is an amazing opportunity for me to talk about something that I don't talk about a lot, which is my experience with bullying and how important it is to stand up to bullies and to support kids who are going through that, and even support kids who are bullying.
What does bullying look like for a 2nd grader?
I think it was really hard for me. I was trying to make new friends, and I thought I'd made new friends with these 2 girls who were athletes too. And they actually left this letter on my desk, which was just incredibly mean. It was like,
that's gross.
I know, too athletic, too bossy, too all of these things. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And so I'm just glad that I have the support I do now. Because it was definitely something that was hard for me to overcome, but I realized that I don't want anybody else to feel the way I did.
How does it feel to be the interviewee?
Yeah, I think I love sharing my story, especially about everything that I do, but I love asking questions too. So it's good to have a balance, but interviewing is definitely my favorite.
It's your favorite?
Yeah.
Now to our video of the day. All right, you know we love a good baby animal. And how cute is this? It's a porcupine that was born at England's Whipsnade Zoo a few months ago.
Did you know a baby porcupine is called a porc-you-pet?
No, I wish I did.
Well,
now I do.
Now we do. Zookeepers will not know if it's a male or female for at least another 6 months.
In the meantime, they have named the new baby Dakari, which is a Zimbabwean word for rejoice. Baby porcupines are born with short, soft quills that harden within a few days after birth. And a group of porcupines is called a prickle. So now, with this porcupet, the zoo has a prickle of porcupines in play. With this porcupet, the zoo has a prickle of porcupines in play. With this porcupet, this zoo has a prickle of I got 1.5. Boop.
All right, let's keep up with this sports theme we've got going. The biggest news in baseball right now isn't about what's happening on the field, but in the history books. MLB records have only included stats from the majors, but now will include stats from Negro League players who have played from 1920 to 1948.
The Negro League was formed for players who weren't allowed to play in the majors because of their race. Josh Gibson, one of the best hitters in the Negro League, is now the MLB's new all-time batting average career leader. Satchel Paige, one of the league's best pitchers, is 3rd in earned run average, or ERA, and the founder of the Negro League was also a player, Andrew Rube Foster, and his stats will now also be included.
We asked you, who was the first Black baseball player to play in the modern major leagues? The answer, Jackie Robinson. He made baseball history by stepping on the field with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. The MLB retired his number 42 across the league in 1997. He started his career in the Negro League, and his stats will now include his time in both leagues.
You in for another animal story?
I always am.
This one will make you go, aww, because this farm in Vermont might fulfill your wildest dreams. At Golden Dog Farm, you and your family can enjoy what's called a Golden Retriever experience. Yes, it's just what it sounds like.
For a fee and by appointment, you can hang out with a gang of Golden Retrievers. The idea started after Doug and Becca Werpel bought Golden Dog Farm during the pandemic. They partnered with a local breeder called Butternut Goldens to do doggy playdates.
Werpel told us that people just love being around dogs. It's like therapy. Duh, I could have told you that one.
Yeah.
And actually, it's backed up by science. A recent South Korean study proved that people do feel more relaxed and rested when they're playing with dogs.
People come from all over the world. And one kid said meeting the golden retrievers was better than Disney World. The farm also produces yummy stuff like maple syrup and honey.
So we want to know, what's your favorite kind of dog? Let us know through emailing us at hi@firststopnews.com.
And one last bit of information about our biggest competitor, Mr. Beast.
The Feastables guy?
Oh yeah.
Well, right now, he's officially the most subscribed channel right here on YouTube. Last year, Mr. Beast, real name Jimmy Donaldson, announced his plans to dominate YouTube to avenge former title holder PewDiePie, who lost it to another channel, T-Series, which is an Indian music label, back in 2019. And he did it! Mr. Beast now has a whopping 270 million subs.
Mr. Beast, we are coming for you. So go like and subscribe. We only need a few more 100 million followers.
We're right behind you, Mr. B.
See you soon.
But until then, we'll be here. So we'll see you next time on First Stop News. So what are we gonna do when we finally get that guy?
I think that we should have a pizza party.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Hey Kelsey, there's an ice cream truck.
Ooh, I could so do a bomb pop.
Yeah, let's see what they got.
Let's go.
This was a good call.
Oh, it was.
But Kelsey, have you ever got...
BRB.
This was a good call.
Obviously.
This was a good call.
Oh, obviously.
But Kelsey, have you ever gotten brain freeze after eating something cold?
I thought everyone does.
Well, do you know how to cure brain freeze?
Good question.
It is a good question. In fact, it's our question of the day. How do you stop brain freeze? Do you have any tricks out there when it happens to you?
We'll have the answer soon.
Plus, we'll tell you which flavor has fallen out of favor.
Now for some space news. China landed a spacecraft on the far side of the moon last week. This is a simulation of the unmanned spacecraft actually landing.
The far side is the one that we on Earth can't see. The moon rotates at the same speed it orbits, so we always see the same side. It's dark and has deep craters, which makes landing anything there pretty difficult.
China is the first country to ever land over there, and this is the second time they've done it. The spacecraft is collecting rock and soil samples and bringing them back to Earth to study the moon's surface, which is 4.5 billion years old.
It's a pretty big deal for China's space program, which is competing with the US to be the next country to send astronauts to the moon. A manned spacecraft hasn't landed on the moon since NASA's Apollo mission in 1969.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
China says it's hoping to put a person on the moon before 2030, and the US has a target date of 2026.
On June 19th, the US will recognize the end of slavery in parts of this country with Juneteenth. The day was only officially recognized as a federal holiday in 2021, but it's actually been celebrated for more than 100 years.
President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 during the Civil War, which ended slavery in the southern states. But it took 2 years for those words to reach those states. It wasn't until June 19, 1865, when members of the Union Army arrived in Galveston, Texas, to make sure that all enslaved people knew they were free.
Kelsey, you got to talk to filmmaker and content creator Garrison Hayes.
I sure did. And he shares stories of Black history and is also the author of a kid's book about Juneteenth. He really helped highlight the significance of the day by setting the scene.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you all the way back to the year 1865. All right, you got to get your mind wrapped around this time. They're in old school clothes back then, okay? They're riding on horseback. And General Gordon Granger from the Union Army rides on his horse with his battalion down to Galveston, Texas, to share that everyone, all formerly enslaved people, were free. He puts a proclamation up in writing, but at that time, only about half of the country could even read. And so he's also sharing this verbally. And the news is spreading from community to community that, hey, there's some great news today. We're all free.
Can you tell us how Juneteenth is celebrated and how the celebration has changed throughout history?
The late 1800s, people are getting together and celebrating what in many ways is Emancipation Day, this freedom day for the Black community. They're wearing their very best clothes, they're eating red and Black food, and they're excited to be together and to celebrate in this way. This celebration starts out in Texas, but it goes to other cities eventually. But there's this really interesting thing that happens in America where sometimes we take a few steps forward, think emancipation, and then sometimes we take a few steps back, think Jim Crow. Juneteenth celebrations really took a back seat during what's known as the Jim Crow period. And so Juneteenth celebrations became really, really small. Like they were almost non-existent. That all changed during the civil rights movement when Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders decided to celebrate Juneteenth. And that's a really big turning point in the national recognition of Juneteenth.
And what are some important names to know when we're talking about Juneteenth?
Opal Lee. She is known as the grandmother of Juneteenth. She's the one who put the pressure on our country's leaders to recognize Juneteenth as a federal holiday. She's 97 years old today, and such an incredible inspiration to me and to many others for her work in advocating on behalf of the Black community, but also on behalf of recognizing this important holiday for our country at large.
Why is it important that Juneteenth is a national holiday?
It's a good question. I think it's important for us to remember our history. It matters that we celebrate the right things. I think celebrating the emancipation of enslaved Black people is really, really important. And it's not just important for me as a Black person, it's actually important for our entire country. Juneteenth is not necessarily Black history, it's truly American history. You can't understand America without understanding what came before, during, and after that very first Juneteenth celebration. It really is a day of Black joy, the opposite of the kind of oppression that we saw during Jim Crow and during slavery in America. And Juneteenth captures that celebration and that joy perfectly.
There's some updates on what's going on in the war between Israel and Hamas. 4 hostages who had been held by Hamas were rescued over the weekend. The Israeli military operation to rescue them left many Palestinians dead. It's believed there are still over 100 hostages being held in Gaza since Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th.
This comes as ceasefire talks continue. On Monday, the UN Security Council adopted its first resolution for a permanent ceasefire.
The draft resolution has been adopted.
The Security Council is the group within the UN whose main responsibility is to maintain international peace and security. The resolution is supported by the US.
Neither Israel nor Hamas has officially accepted that plan to end the war. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been meeting with officials in the Middle East this week to push the deal forward.
We were waiting on one response, and that was the response from Hamas. Last night, we received a response. Hamas has proposed numerous changes to the proposal that was on the table. We discussed those changes last night with Egyptian colleagues and today with the Prime Minister. Some of the changes are workable, some are not.
We'll let you know if anything new develops, so be sure to like and subscribe here for the latest.
Taking a turn now to the depths of the ocean. Scientists use high-tech underwater robots, and they've discovered over 100 potentially new species off the coast of Chile.
Ghostly white sponges, lobster with beady eyes and barbed legs, clusters of undersea urchins that look like cacti, and those are just a few of the new creatures.
Identifying new species helps to understand the variety of life under the sea. It's all part of a mission to protect our planet's oceans and the marine life that call them home. So who knows? Maybe one day you could be the next ocean explorer, making discoveries of your own.
Now, we finished our ice cream from earlier, but we are not done talking about ice cream. A very popular flavor has fallen from the top of the national favorites list.
And the flavor is? Chocolate chip, thank goodness. I do not like chocolate, and it is no longer a fan favorite. In fact, it didn't even make the top 5. Instead, it ranked 8th place in a 2024 survey from the International Dairy Food Association. So, what is the #1 flavor in America?
Wait, hold up. Before we answer that, we decided to do some scooping ourselves and conducted our own first stop survey.
Hi, my name is Courtney. My favorite flavor is vanilla. My favorite ice cream flavor is Oreo.
My favorite ice cream flavor is mint Oreo cookie. My favorite ice cream flavor is vanilla.
And our official results. Almost 20% of these 5th graders we polled are in line with America's favorite. Drum roll, please.
I did the drum roll earlier. I don't want to double drum roll.
Vanilla!
Mint chocolate chip and cookies and cream rounded out these 5th graders' top choices. As for the rest of America, chocolate, strawberry, butter pecan, always a good one, and cookie dough are in the top 5.
Wait, what about toppings?
I am so glad you asked. The kids' favorite toppings was sprinkles, never Jimmy's, all the way. Then chocolate fudge or syrup, followed by cherries, I guess some of the kids want to be healthy, and gummy bears.
I used to just get a cup of whipped cream though when I was in 5th grade.
You did what?
I would just get a cup of whipped cream.
Like a little bit, like that's it?
Yeah,
like
like the pop cups, but for humans.
Those are for dogs. Was that funny? Not our best banter. All this ice cream talk reminds us of our question of the day. We asked, how do you stop a brain freeze? I wouldn't know. Never had one.
That's kind of weird to me, I must say. Well, it's that feeling where you eat or drink something really cold that makes you wince. We asked a pediatrician, Dr. Amna Hussein, and she said there's a few things you can do.
Top 3 would be 1, you could take a drink of warm water, which isn't always obvious and not always accessible. The second thing you could do is possibly putting the tongue to the roof of the mouth, which then also helps to rapidly warm up the area so that you're not feeling that sensation. The third thing you could do is just altogether stop eating ice cream, which I think none of us are willing to do.
Even when a brain freeze hurts, I can't stop eating ice cream.
Why?
Well, it would melt.
We also found out what actually happens when you get a brain freeze.
A brain freeze is actually caused by rapid expansion of blood vessels in the roof of the mouth. So when something cold touches the roof of our mouth, our body actually tries to help warm that really quickly, and it does that by increasing blood flow to the area, and that's what we call vasodilation. The nerves in our palate feel that, don't like that sensation, and that's what causes the brain freeze.
I have seen every single Jurassic Park movie.
You're about to say you're a dinosaur
So
expert.
I'm pretty much a dinosaur expert.
Go ahead.
I know one prehistoric creature you don't want to mess with is the velociraptor. Now in reality, velociraptors weren't nearly as large as they appear on the big screen. They were actually around the size of a Labrador, which I don't know if that makes it scary or less scary.
I don't know. You're the expert.
You're right. Say it again.
You're the expert.
But now paleontologists have discovered it might have a bigger, badder relative.
Megaraptor.
Megaraptor.
Researchers have identified a new species of Megaraptor from a set of fossilized footprints, and it could be the largest of its kind. The footprints were found in an area in southeastern China where lots of dinosaurs lived millions of years ago.
But how do they know that raptors left those tracks? The trick is in the 2 toes. That's unique to raptors because they kept their inside toes off the ground to prevent their big, round claws from dragging.
Okay, well, based on the size of these prints, the scientists believe it was probably around 5 feet tall and 15 feet long. That's disgusting to me.
One thing we know for sure is that it left behind a big old footprint.
So we want to know, do you love dinosaurs as much as Larry or as much as me? Which is your favorite? Send us a note using hi@firststopnews.com.
Sunday is Father's Day, and we want to wish all the dads and father figures out there a great day celebrating with the people they love.
Like my cousin Zane with Maya and Serena, Dan with Bodie and Lila, and Kyle with his 4 kids at a St. Jude's race. We love to see you and your families and hope you're all going to give these dads a day they deserve.
But the best thing you can do for your dad on Father's Day, like and subscribe to First Stop News, and we'll see you right here again next week.
Reese's Puff, Reese's Puff. Peanut butter chocolate flavor.
Hey everybody, June 20th is the longest day of the year.
It's what's known as the summer solstice for the northern hemisphere. It happens when the Earth's tilt towards the sun is at its maximum. So some cities could see up to 15 hours of sunlight.
Okay, let's get to our question of the day. June is Pride Month, and there are lots of parades and events to celebrate the LGBTQ+ community.
And we're curious, do you know why the symbol for Pride is a rainbow flag? We've got the answer coming up.
Vermont just made a big statement about climate change and who's responsible when it causes damage. Earlier this month, it became the first state to pass a law that requires companies that produce fossil fuels to pay for destruction caused by global warming.
Fossil fuel companies produce non-renewable energy sources like oil and gas, and the emissions from these sources cause temperatures to get warmer. Climate change is responsible for lots of extreme weather across the globe, like wildfires, premature melting ice, and flooding.
Last year, there was extreme flooding in Vermont from torrential rain. It was the worst natural disaster in the state since the 1920s. As part of the new law, Vermont will ask fossil fuel companies to pay up for the last 30 years of climate-fueled devastation in the state. That money will go towards new roads, home relocation, and upgrades to make things more energy efficient.
The law is the first of its kind, so it's probably going to face a lot of legal challenges. But other states like Maryland, California, and New York are considering similar laws.
This next one is about a war going on in Sudan, which is a country in Africa. So, we get it if you want to watch this with somebody.
Sudan borders 7 different countries, including Egypt, Libya, and Chad. What's going on there is complicated, so let's break it down. There has been unrest in the country for years.
The latest fighting began in April of 2023. Since then, thousands of people have been killed, millions have lost their homes, and people are facing extreme hunger.
Back in 2019, 2 army generals came together to overthrow Sudan's then long-term military leader and president.
One of the generals leads the Sudanese Armed Forces, or the SAF. The other is the leader of the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. A paramilitary group looks and acts like an army, but is not officially recognized by the country.
Both men promised the people of Sudan they would get rid of the country's military regime and transition to a democracy like we have in the US. But this did not happen. In April 2023, they started a war against each other to take control.
The fighting has forced over 10 million people to leave their homes, and it's become the largest hunger crisis in the world.
The UN has been urging for a ceasefire and much-needed aid for 25 million people. As of last week, the United States is providing more than $315 million in additional humanitarian assistance.
And here in the US, organizations like IRC, UNICEF, and Save the Children are accepting money to help. We'll keep watching this, so make sure you're subscribed for the latest.
A shipping channel in Baltimore, Maryland has fully reopened after a major bridge collapsed there in March. A ship lost power and crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
6 people died, and teams have been working to clean up the debris since the accident. And most sea traffic was blocked until now.
About 50,000 tons of steel and concrete had to be removed from the river in order to reopen. Now that the passageway has been restored, shipping through the Port of Baltimore can ramp back up, which is good news because it's one of the busiest ports in the US.
Leaders from all over the world were in southern Italy last week for the G7 summit. The G7, which stands for Group of 7, is a meeting between leaders from the US, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK. These countries are some of the richest democracies with shared goals.
Russia was part of the group, then called the G8, until 2014 when it invaded a neighboring country. And China, which is run by a dictator, has never been included in the group.
This meeting is a chance for the countries to discuss global issues like peacemaking, uniting against nuclear war, and the environment. This year, they covered a lot, including a $50 billion loan for Ukraine using interest from frozen Russian assets.
Back in 2022, 2 days after Russia's invasion, members of the G7 and the European Union worked together to freeze $280 billion in Russian central bank funds outside of Russia. This week, the G7 signed a plan to finalize and unlock $50 billion from the proceeds of those frozen assets. To put that money to work for Ukraine, another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down.
Ukraine's president was at the summit to receive the news. Ukraine and Russia have been at war for almost 2.5 years. The Pope was there, a first for a pontiff. He spoke to the group on artificial intelligence, stressing the need for oversight as the technology continues to improve.
You know what's cuter than a baby monkey? A bright orange baby monkey. And that little monkey is a good sign for the Francois Langueur.
This is proud new mom, Mei Lee, and her baby at the San Diego Zoo. They're endangered Francois Langueur. Francois Langueur. Francois Langueur.
I think it's Langueur.
That's why I put
Sure it's
Langueur. One more time. This is the one. I feel it. This is proud. They are an endangered kind of primate. They're also native to southwestern China and northeastern Vietnam. They're born with that bright orange hair, but it will darken to black as it grows up.
There are just about 2,000 left of this species. Their population in the wild has been cut in half over the last 40 years due to hunting, habitat loss, and agricultural expansion. As of now, the baby hasn't been named yet.
We mentioned earlier how June is Pride Month. It's a celebration of the LGBTQ+ community. We have content creator Jose Rolón here with us today, and his 10-year-old daughter, London. I'm so happy to have both of you here with us today.
Are you kidding? Thanks for having us.
What is Pride Month about and why is it so important?
So I would say Pride Month is all about the LGBTQ plus community and allies coming together to celebrate and honor those in our community to be respected. Celebrating Pride is important so that other people can see how beautiful we are and how dynamic we are, and we come in all different shapes and sizes and cultures and economic backgrounds. As a father, I really want people to say, oh, he's really not that different from our family. He might be a little bit more colorful, but we're doing the same thing. We're all trying to do the best that we can. And for others to see that is one out of many reasons why it's so important to have Pride.
Yeah. So that we're respected. I like to be respected.
Can you tell us, what does a good ally look like?
When you have an ally stand up there and voice their thoughts and love for our community, they tend to be a lot more open. So that's why I really think that allies are like super important and vital. And we try to spread that love to our kids so that they can grow up and be allies.
Would you help us with our question of the day?
Yes.
And help us understand, why is this rainbow flag used to represent Pride?
Let's get into the history a little bit. So Gilbert Baker created this flag in 1978, and this was an answer to what happened in 1969, the Stonewall riots. There was a place that was meant for the LGBTQ plus community. They were being targeted and discriminated against, made to feel less than. And so they retaliated, and that really is what changed the course for the LGBTQ plus community. The reason this is a symbol for Pride, it's to just acknowledge all of the history that we've had and where we want to go ahead in the future, which is really making sure that we're all being seen and heard and we have equal rights. I think a lot of people make the assumption that it's like this full-on rainbow flag, but each color has a different meaning. What does red stand for?
Life.
Life, that's right. What does orange stand for? Healing.
Yeah. Healing.
What does yellow stand for?
Sunlight.
Yep. And what does green stand for?
Nature.
And blue?
So, how do you say?
Serenity.
Yeah, serenity.
Yeah. And what about purple?
Spirit.
And I think the flag will continue to change over time. The reason for this is to show solidarity as a symbol for the LGBTQ plus community.
What is your favorite thing about Pride and celebrating with your family?
Getting to make LGBTQ plus community and families feel special and like they belong and not just like they don't exist. Because some people, they don't support it, and I think it's really special to support it and really important just to make everybody feel they're allowed to do the same thing as any other people would do.
Thank you all for being yourself and making sure you're showing the world and teaching us about Pride too.
Astronomers discovered a new planet outside our solar system, and it's being described as fluffy and light, with a similar density to, wait for it, cotton candy. Kelsey, what's your take on cotton candy?
It must be hand spun and it must be pink.
Oh, it's actually, I thought you were going to go on a whole laundry list there. That was very quick. But it sounds pretty delicious, right?
It sure does. And the planet is named WASP 193b. It's 1,200 light years from Earth, and it's around 1.5 times the size of Jupiter. Just to give you an idea of how big that is, Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system, and about 1,300 Earths could fit inside just one Jupiter.
Even though this new planet is bigger than Jupiter, it's also about 100 times lighter. The new planet is made up mostly of hydrogen and helium. And now that we know it exists, scientists can study it to see how other fluffy planets are formed.
It's almost Olympic time, and the Eiffel Tower is dressed for the occasion. Paris's most famous attraction is displaying the Olympic rings for the 2024 Games.
The tradition is called spectaculars, where famous landmarks in the host city get dressed with the rings. Each ring is 30 feet wide and made of recycled French steel.
The 5 rings represent the union of the 5 regions and the meeting of athletes around the world. The Eiffel Tower is joining other famous spots in previous Olympic cities, like London's Tower Bridge and Tokyo's Odaiba Beach, and Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, where I'm from.
So we want to know, are you excited for the Olympics? The US Olympic trials are happening now. Which sport are you most looking forward to? Let us know through hi@firststopnews.com.
And one more thing, Larry is wrong.
What?
Yeah, because the Celtics won in the NBA Finals, Game 5. This makes it their 18th championship and the winningest franchise in the league.
Yeah, I know. I said they were going to win.
Okay, cut to it.
Kelsey, who do you have for the finals?
I think Celtics in 7.
Okay, that's a good one. I think it's going to be the Mavs in 7. Yikes.
It's okay. I was a little wrong too. But more importantly, I was more right than you.
Well, you know, that's not the only championship going on this week. The Stanley Cup could have a new home tomorrow. The Florida Panthers have another shot at shutting down the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers lead the series 3-2 after the Oilers' victory on Tuesday night.
Regardless, you can always find out who's right and who's wrong here at First Stop News. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
There it was, Katie didn't know how to say it, so I said it for myself. Go.
They make a fart gun in real life, and the farts smell like bananas.
Today, June 27th, is National Sunglasses Day, National Ice Cream Cake Day, and National Bomb Pop Day, my absolute favorite.
And don't forget about National Onion Day and National Handshake Day, and there's still more.
More importantly, how do we even come up with all of these days?
Well, the only person who can answer that question is Marlo Anderson, the man behind the National Day calendar. How is it possible that there's so many different holidays to celebrate all on the same day?
Well, we have about 1,600 national days now. So, of course, there's 365 days. You divide that out, you're probably going to have 4 or 5 on an average every day.
So tell us a little bit about how you started the calendar, what gave you the idea for it?
When I first started, there were about 30 or 40 national days that were pretty popular, like Coffee Day and Popcorn Day. I couldn't find any reason why these days existed online. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to start trying to find the history of these national days. And in that research, found that there were a lot more that have been declared by past presidents, by Congress, or companies that, you know, had been forgotten about. So I started to write about those.
You said you were looking for the history of National Popcorn Day. What did you end up finding?
Nothing. How ironic is that?
Can you tell me a little bit about what the process is to submit a day to the calendar? Do you have to be a certain age?
There's no age restriction to this. We have plenty of students that submit days as well.
Okay, so can you hook me up to help make National Kids News Day a thing? We got to get that on the calendar. If 2026 is already out, then I'm aiming for 2027.
Nobody's ever asked me before about getting a new national day. I'm just saying, so I appreciate that you're the first person ever to do that.
Tonight, President Biden and former President Trump will face off for the first debate of the 2024 election season. We're going to get into the debate and why this particular debate is such a big deal. In the meantime, do you know the year of the first televised debate? It's not really a clear answer.
The U.S. Surgeon General wants Congress to put warning labels on social media platforms like those on vapes and cigarettes. Dr. Vivek Murthy is the nation's top doctor. He wrote, social media contributes to poor mental health in young people and believes that warning labels could help parents and kids understand the risks.
Experts actually compare social media to tobacco, saying it can be both addictive and harmful, especially for young people. Dr. Murthy's biggest concerns: push notifications, autoplay, and the ability to infinitely scroll, also known as the doom scroll. I'm guilty, which he feels leaves kids spending too much time online.
In fact, New York took its own action last week, signing 2 bills meant to protect kids online. One says feeds for anyone under 18 must appear in chronological order, and a platform may not send notifications between midnight and 6 a.m. The other says websites cannot collect or use personal information for anyone under the age of 18. This law has already been in place for people under 13. Other states like California, Florida, Arkansas, and Louisiana have also passed their own laws.
Back to those labels. Congress would need to approve them, and that could take time for a few reasons. The lengthy legal battles from tech companies, the argument that labels would infringe on the right to free speech, and also kids and teens feel social media helps them connect with friends. These are the same issues individual states face too.
We really want to know what you think of these laws around social media and young people. Use hi@firststopnews.com to tell us. We'll stay on top of this, so make sure you're subscribed for the latest updates.
Tonight is the first debate of the 2024 presidential election. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are going head-to-head in the one and only Atlanta, Georgia.
She loves Atlanta.
Oh, I do. Normally, debates don't happen until after the Democratic and Republican nominating conventions, where Trump and Biden will officially be nominated by their parties. But both candidates agreed they wanted to do this before early voting begins in any states.
Tonight won't be the first time these two have been on a debate stage together, and in the past, it's gotten pretty heated.
And it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say.
This time, though, the rules are a little bit different. No opening statements, no studio audience, so you won't hear any cheering or booing. And the candidates' microphones will be muted when they're not answering a question. There was actually a coin flip to decide who stands where on the stage and who gets the last word.
Biden's campaign won that coin toss, and he's choosing to stand at the podium on the right side of your screen. But former President Donald Trump will give his closing statement after Biden, so he'll have the last word.
Some of the topics that will probably come up tonight include immigration and what to do with the thousands of people illegally crossing the U.S. border every day, the United States' involvement in the war between Israel and Hamas, and former President Donald Trump being found guilty of felony crimes. Presidential debates offer voters a chance to see and hear the candidates going through the various issues while viewers can watch how they command the stage.
Let's bring it back to the top when we ask, what year was the first televised debate? The answer, 1956. But it wasn't between the two candidates. It was actually between two women.
Democratic candidate Adlai Stevenson challenged President Eisenhower to a debate, but instead former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt took on Republican Senator Margaret Chase Smith. Smith and Roosevelt were asked by their party's national committees to be the stand-ins for the candidates, which means they represented Stevenson and Eisenhower and advocated for their platforms.
4 years later, in 1960, John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon participated in what most people say is the first televised presidential debate. And there wasn't another one on TV until 1976. But since then, there's been debates every election.
The Florida Panthers have finally won the 2024 Stanley Cup.
The first time hockey champions took the 2-1 win in Game 7 over the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers' Connor McDavid was named MVP even though his team lost. It's the 6th time in NHL history this has happened.
But overall, it was Florida's night to drink out of the Lord Stanley Cup. I have always wanted to take a drink out of that.
I don't. That sounds gross.
Oh, it's very cool. They wipe it off after each person. It's
Really?
cool. Yeah. Literally, one guy has been following that cup around for like the last 50 years.
Oh, is it the same cup that's given?
Yep.
Oh,
and
so
everybody
it's
gets
like-
their names on the outside of it.
Oh.
People say it's the coolest trophy in sports, and I think people are right on that one.
Despicable Me 4 is hitting theaters July 3rd, and Larry had the chance to talk to 2 of the stars.
Oh, he's having fun.
Yeah, too much fun.
You have been the veteran of the franchise. You've been with Margot for a long time now. How has she changed from the first movie to now?
In the first movie, Margot was so concerned with just taking care of her 2 sisters, and she did not trust Gru at all. And in Despicable Me 4, you can see they're like fully a family now. Margot totally trusts Gru. She loves him. They have a really good relationship. She still makes fun of him and calls him out sometimes.
Joey, newcomer. You play Poppy, who's a brand new character. What does entering this minion-filled world in this new franchise mean to you?
I always loved these movies. I would have been happy playing a rock. I wouldn't have cared, but I love Poppy so much. She's such an amazing character. So being asked to play a character that I think is just so wonderful and charming and fun to play. Yes! Was a really special thing.
Miranda, what kind of responses do you get from kids when they find out you're behind the voice of Margot?
People are usually a little disappointed that I'm not a minion. People are always excited because so many kids just love these movies so much. So it just feels good to be a part of it.
What do you guys hope kids take away from Despicable Me 4?
First of all, I hope they have a grand old time. I hope it gives them some really funny little anecdotes and sense of humor and pranks to try home.
Don't think of it as lying. Think of it as high stakes pretending.
But also, I think the overall message of Despicable Me is how important family and how important friendship is, and to stand up for yourself.
What keeps kids coming back again and again and again to keep seeing these adventures?
It's pretty unique. Things just kind of keep coming at you, and you don't really know what's coming next, which is part of the fun of the movie for sure. And there's always new amazing characters in each movie, I think.
Sure.
Yes, like Poppy.
Oh, please, guys.
And I think in this movie, the Mega Minions, people are going to really enjoy.
So the next round of questions we're going to have are going to be rapid fire.
Oh, love it.
I need to get my glasses out for these.
Oh, yeah. Put your readers on.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah, there's small print. If you could be a minion, what role would you perform for Gru?
Oh,
Okay.
we haven't asked that.
Never been asked that question before.
Here at First Stop News, we only ask the hard stuff.
I like that. I would take on the task of deleting all of his junk mail and his in his mailbox for all of his emails. You know, that's a really big task. I would also make sure that he didn't have any duplicates in his photos folder. Screenshots that are duplicates.
That's clutch.
Very important.
Yeah, I wanted to organize his life a little bit.
I'd want to be on baby duty.
He's still asleep.
If you could get one of Gru's gadgets, which one do you wish you had in real life?
Fart gun.
Fart gun. And they make a fart gun in real life, and the farts smell like bananas.
If you were an evil villain, assuming both of you are not, but keep that to yourselves.
You never know.
What would be the one thing you'd want to steal the most?
Your heart.
Oh,
That's a good one.
adorable.
I know. That's my final answer. You?
I would want to steal like the keys to the mall near my house. I'd want to be able to.
Wow, not my heart. Huh?
Sorry, Jenny's heart, and then
I
the
see.
keys to the Grove.
Only so she could get you something
Yeah,
nice to
exactly.
pay
So I
you.
could take you shopping
Yeah.
with me.
I saw it.
Buddies.
If you could cast live action minions, who would you cast?
My nieces would be great minions. I think they'd have a great old time.
I feel like any kid would want to be a minion.
That seems fun because not only do you get to do fun stuff, but they also have like a bounce to them where it doesn't seem like they can really get injured in the same way we can.
They're
Like,
kind of indestructible.
yeah, they're like made of pure cartilage or something.
If you had your own minions, what would you make them do?
I have a bunch of animals. I have 6 animals, so I would have the minions take care of my animals.
A lot
I'd have
of
them feed
animals.
them, groom them, like really fluff them up, give them baths every day, and make them smell really good.
So all you have to do is cuddle.
Yeah, all you have to do is
Exactly.
go. Give me like a nice scalp massage every now and then would be cool.
Massages would be really
Swiffer
good.
my floors would be nice. Lots of stuff.
Please pick a favorite minion.
From the Mega Minions?
I forgot about the fan
I'm
minions.
so happy to be there. I'm a huge fan of the Stretchy Minion. He cracks me up.
I have to go with the fan minion. He's so cute.
He's so
he
cute.
wishes he was one of them so bad.
This was so
Can't
fun.
wait to see the movie.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Again, just readers.
Just reading glasses.
Yeah.
What's your prescription?
400, 200.
Yeah,
so
there
it's
you
great.
go.
If you want more Joey and Miranda or even Larry, the full interview is on our channel.
Next week is America's biggest holiday, the 4th of July, which means...
It's time to celebrate and get on the grill.
And this town is the place to be. It's really small, about 6,000 people, and it's called Seward, Nebraska.
In 1979, Congress declared Seward America's official 4th of July city. 50,000 people show up for this 3-day event. And I know it's a good one because the local high school students plan it. There's games, live music, contests, over 175 vendors selling food and activities. And they even have cloggers.
What's a clogger?
How can you not know what a clogger is? Dancers that tap their heels and make the noises.
You can also talk to President Lincoln and his wife at the Nebraska National Guard Museum. And for the grand finale, there is a spectacular, what else? Fireworks display. Believe it or not, as soon as it's over, the students start planning immediately for next year's celebration.
Okay, guys, that does it for today. Everybody, have a nice weekend and make sure you're subscribed to First Stop News.
Happy 4th of July! We're glad you're here!
Maybe you're taking a break from the heat, getting ready to watch a hot dog eating contest, or preparing for a night of some fireworks. Whatever it is, get ready for some news.
Every year on the 4th of July, there are about 14,000 fireworks displays across the country. New York City and DC always do it big, but smaller towns celebrate with their own shows too.
We call them fireworks, but there's a technical term. Do you know it? If you do, tell us through hi@firststopnews.com. We'll pick 5 of you and shout you out on the show later this month.
All right, it's time to check in on our 4th of July knowledge.
We got some questions about the holiday, and thanks to the help of a 5th grade teacher from Rocky Point, New York, we now have the answers.
Hi everybody, I'm Miss Ciliento. I'm a 5th grade teacher, and today I'm going to answer some of your questions about the 4th of July.
My name's Michaela. I'm 11 years old, and my question is, how old is the United States?
As of 2024, the United States is 248 years old.
It was founded in 1776 when the Declaration of Independence was signed, freeing the 13 colonies from British rule.
Hello, my name is Charlie. I'm 10 years old and I'm from Mississippi. And my question is, when was the 4th of July officially a holiday for the country?
We celebrate the 4th of July because it is a special day to honor and remember the USA when it became a free and independent country. Congress passed this a national and federal holiday on June 28, 1870.
My name is Trey. I'm 8 years old and my question is, why are fireworks on July 4th?
Fireworks were used to celebrate as part of the first 4th of July. Fireworks on the 4th of July are a traditional part in celebrating Independence Day in the United States. They symbolize joy, pride, and patriotic spirit of American people to celebrate this historic event. John Adams wrote a letter to his wife stating that they would celebrate using fireworks.
I was wondering, do the colors of the American flag have a specific meaning?
Yes, they do. Red symbolizes valor and bravery. It reflects the courage of those who fought for our country. White symbolizes purity and innocence. Blue stands for vigilance, perseverance, and justice.
Why is barbecue food one of the most popular foods we eat on 4th of July, and how many hot dogs do we eat?
Barbecues and hot dogs have become popular foods to serve on the 4th of July. In summer, many people grill, and hot dogs are easy to cook and feed large groups of people. So there you have it. Happy 4th of July, everyone, and have a great holiday.
Tonight, the sky will be lit up with fireworks from big cities to small towns. And earlier, we asked you, what's their technical name? The answer? Explosive pyrotechnics. Exactly. And pyro comes from an ancient Greek word that means fire. What you see in the sky is a result of different types of gunpowder, gases, and metals being set on fire.
And different chemicals mixed in can create different sounds. So if a firework sounds really loud like this, there's probably potassium in it.
Go potatoes.
Bananas.
Oh.
Bananas have potassium.
I actually think so do potatoes.
Do they? I thought so. Okay, I learned something today then. But if you hear a crackling effect that sounds like this, that means there's bismuth in it, which is a type of metal.
They look incredible from a distance, but they're pretty dangerous close up. So definitely don't try to set them off yourself. Leave that to the professionals.
You know this image. It's the American flag. 50 white stars on a blue background that represent all 50 states in the US. The flag has evolved since 1776, but there's always been some sort of red, white, and blue with stars and stripes on it.
The original flag had 13 stars for each of the 13 colonies. And the last time the flag was updated was exactly 64 years ago, in 1960, when Hawaii was incorporated as a state. So the current flag you see flying today has 50 stars, staggered horizontally, in 11 rows staggered vertically.
Glad you kept track of that. Now we have to talk about the legend, yes, the legend of Betsy Ross. She's a real person and she's often credited for making the first American flag, but historians have never actually found any records that prove this. What has been confirmed, Ross was an upholsterer who made flags for the Army and the Navy.
So, while Betsy Ross may not have been the first, she's still considered an important figure in history. And for who did make the American flag, we don't know. But that may be something a future historian watching will solve.
Now, who made the flag is one thing, but how to fly it is another. The United States has something called a flag code, and it creates a set of suggested rules of how to properly display and care for the national flag. Here are a few that stand out.
Do display the flag in locations like schools, polling locations, and government buildings. When you raise the flag, raise it quickly and lower it slowly. And make sure it's flying on top, above city, state, and other organization flags when they're all sharing the same staff.
What about for your awesome earrings?
These break the code.
Now for the don'ts. Don't let the flag touch anything beneath it, like the ground or a floor or water. Don't use it to hold your belongings, and definitely don't use it as a blanket.
That's very fair. These are a lot of fashion violations and flag code violations. But you can always wear your cutest combo of red, white, and blue, just like Larry and I.
We asked you what you're up to today, and it turns out over 40% of you will be watching fireworks.
And a close second, hanging out by the pool. That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, we hope you're enjoying the day.
And we'll see you back here again next time, so make sure to leave us a like and subscribe.
Hey everyone, today, July 11th, is All American Pet Photo Day, which means grab your pet, Larry.
Mosh.
Hey Mosh, take a picture and share it.
And we got a bunch of great photos from you, like Tito and Billy. But before we get to even more, do you know which dog breed is the most popular in the US? Do you know?
Is it you, Mosh?
If you sit and you wait, we'll tell you later in the show.
3, 2, 1, ignition, engine full power, and liftoff.
That's a rocket launching a new weather satellite into orbit last month. It's the fourth and final satellite in a series that NASA put into space for the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, aka NOAA. Its nickname GOES, which stands for Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite. And NASA says it's more powerful than anything that's been up there before. Forecasters will be able to keep a closer eye on storms and solar activities like auroras. It can even collect climate data about what's going on in the Earth's oceans and zoom in on all the places where there's a risk of wildfires or fog. NOAA says it's, quote, the Western Hemisphere's most sophisticated weather observing and environmental monitoring system. Since it will improve how weather is detected, it will allow for earlier warnings and watches to be issued. It will observe most of North America, as well as Central and South America, the Caribbean, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west coast of Africa. The new technology will come in handy because NOAA expects this year's hurricane season to be one of the worst in decades.
In 2 weeks, the Summer Olympics will kick off in Paris, France with what's known as the opening ceremony. It's when athletes from all over the world are introduced and the host city puts on a show. This year, it will happen on the Seine, the river that runs right through the city. It's the first time the opening ceremony isn't happening in a stadium. More than 10,000 athletes from over 200 countries will be sailing along boats on the river.
All of the Olympians live in the Olympic Village, which is like a mini college campus built just for the games. Team USA is expected to have more than 800 athletes competing at the Olympics and Paralympics. The Paralympics are for athletes with a range of disabilities and will take place at the end of August. We should talk about the sports, right?
Of course. Breakdancing is making its Olympic debut. Sport climbing, surfing, and my favorite, skateboarding, were added in the last few years. And we gotta talk about basketball. The US women's team is going for their 8th consecutive gold medal, but there's been a lot of talk about the women's squad because WNBA star Caitlin Clark was not invited to be on the team. And the men's team, which includes LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and my man Joel Embiid, is taking their shot at their 5th gold medal. Let's go.
For gymnastics, all eyes will be on Simone Biles. The 4-time gold medalist dropped out of her last Olympics in 2020 because of stress, which gave her something called the twisties. That's when a gymnast gets disoriented in the air, and it can be pretty dangerous. She took some time off, started training again, and announced last year that she'd aim for the Paris Olympics. And guess what? She made it. In fact, she's the top gymnast on the US team.
Now, on to swimming. 7-time gold medalist Katie Ledecky made her Olympic debut in London when she was just 15 years old, but now she's 27 and heading to her 4th Olympics and hoping for some more gold medals.
On the track, my favorite, you'll hear about Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson, who are considered the fastest in the world right now because of their times in the 100-meter race. At Olympic trials, Richardson ran it in 10.71 seconds, and Lyles ran a 9.83. And make sure you remember this name, Quincy Wilson. He's a 16-year-old from Maryland who's making history as the youngest male to ever be on the USA Olympic track team. All the competition kicks off on July 26th. Which sports are you excited to watch?
Imagine seeing this. This mama bear, Maddie, and her cub love beating the heat in this California pool. Ricky Martinez and Brian Gordon moved to their home in 2020, and the bears were some of the first neighbors to welcome them.
So we got the house in November. The day after Thanksgiving was the first time we saw the bears, and we're like, what? We were just like astonished by what we were seeing.
Ricky and Brian's home sits right on the edge of Angeles National Forest, so it's pretty common for bears to pass through their neighborhood. They make sure to keep a safe distance. But what should you do if you ever see a bear in real life? We asked Katmai National Park Ranger Susan Contreras, who showed us how to stay bear aware out there.
Bears are shy creatures. They're wild. The last thing they want to do is interact with us. So the way that we help them is we let them know that we, human beings, are present. And the way to do that is to make a noise. Sing when you're walking down that trail. Talk, have conversations, clap your hands, shuffle your feet on the gravel as you walk on that trail. And that way you can avoid any kind of encounter. Travel as much as you can with a group of people. Typically, 3 or more is the ideal scenario. If you're on a trail and a bear begins to approach you, first thing you want to do is stop, stay still. Start talking to the bear in a calm, confident, gentle voice. I'm so sorry to invade your territory, but I'll tell you what. You go your way and I'll go mine. The other thing you can do is raise your hands above your head and wave them gently. Don't wave them frantically, just a gentle wave. This makes you look bigger. The calm voice lets the bear know that you are not a threat. If you allow that bear that space by staying still, then that bear can go his or her own way, and you'll just both continue to have a wonderful day in wilderness.
Are you ready for more cute pets? What kind of question is that?
A silly one.
We told you it's All-American Pet Photo Day. So make sure you're taking lots of pictures with your pet, but we have a bunch of great shots from all of you.
And all of this got us thinking, which dog breed is the most popular in the US?
Is it the Dachshund?
Unfortunately, no. I know, it's the French Bulldog. According to the American Kennel Club, the Frenchie took the top spot in 2022, knocking the Labrador down the list after a 3-decade reign. Want to see some cute French Bulldogs? Check out Miles and Jerry.
And we're not stopping there. We've got Bear, we've got Moose. Here's Cooper. Take a look at Remy.
Bowie, Georgie, Billy.
There's Violet. Here's some Nathan. And don't forget about Radley Olive.
We've got cats too. Chewy and Tito and Humphrey. So many cute pets. Thank you for sending us those photos.
In July 1937, Amelia Earhart was trying to become the first woman to fly around the world when her plane went missing over the Pacific Ocean. What happened next is a complete mystery.
Neither Earhart, her navigator Fred Noonan, who was on board with her, or the plane were ever found. Until now. Well, maybe.
An exploration company called Deep Sea Vision says they found what they think is the wreckage of Earhart's famous plane, more than 15,000 feet underwater, about halfway between Hawaii and Australia.
The team used sonar imaging to search underwater, which means they used sound waves to map the ocean floor with something that looks like a huge underwater drone. Deep Sea Vision was searching for the wreckage when they say they spotted something that looked like the shape and size of Earhart's plane. And because of where it was found, about 100 miles away from where Earhart was supposed to land, there's a chance it could be the missing plane. If it actually is her plane, it would be a huge discovery and missing piece of history.
Earhart was a trailblazer in aviation, especially for women. Her most famous flight happened in 1932 when she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. She took off in Canada and 15 hours later, landed in Northern Ireland. She's also the first person to ever fly solo across both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
All right, so what happens now?
We get our scuba gear! Just kidding.
Well, Deep Sea Vision told us they are hoping to go back to the site next year to get closer to the potential wreckage. If they do find something that resembles a plane, they'll bring it up to the surface to inspect it. In 2023, a museum all about Earhart and the record she broke opened in her hometown of Atchison, Kansas. Have a great rest of the weekend, and don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. And we'll see you next time right here on First Stop News.
It didn't make sense the way it was written. We didn't catch that earlier.
Hi all, it's been a busy week in the news and we've got a lot of political stuff to cover today, including all the action leading up to the Republican National Convention, where Trump was officially named the Republican presidential candidate. But first, Trump is running for his second term, and a president can only serve 2 terms in office. But do you know that wasn't always the case? There was one person who served more. So our question of the day, which US president served 4 terms in office? If you know, send us your answer to hi@firststopnews.com, or just stick around to find out who it was. The Republican National Convention has been going on all week in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and ends tonight. Trump arrived to the event on Monday night bandaged. This was the first time he was seen after gunshots at his rally last Saturday afternoon. Before we get into what the convention is and what's going on there, let's break down what happened at Trump's rally last weekend. Shots were fired during the former president's speech at a Pennsylvania rally on Saturday. A bullet reportedly grazed the former president's right ear. He was rushed off stage by Secret Service. The FBI has said this was an assassination attempt. The gunshots killed one person and 2 others were injured. The 20-year-old shooter was also killed, and his motive is still unknown. The Secret Service's planning of the rally is being investigated to try to understand how the shooter was able to access a nearby rooftop. President Biden gave a speech from the Oval Office condemning the violence.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions.
And called for unity within America.
You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that.
Trump also called for unity on a social post. The White House has increased Secret Service protection of the former president. The Secret Service has protected presidents since 1901. It also protects vice presidents, their family, and former presidents, and more. Agents are trained to protect at all times, even in dangerous or life-threatening situations. Assassination attempts on presidents or presidential candidates are pretty rare, but there have been at least 12, and some have ended in death. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, was shot while at a performance in his 4th year as president. He died hours later. John F. Kennedy was also assassinated during a trip to Dallas in 1963. His VP, Lyndon B. Johnson, was sworn in as president on Air Force One just hours after Kennedy was shot. Kennedy's brother, Robert F. Kennedy, was also killed. He was shot at a celebration event after winning the California primary in 1968. Others have survived assassination attempts, like Gerald Ford, who faced 2 assassination attempts weeks apart in 1975. He was not injured in either. Theodore Roosevelt was shot in 1912 while aiming for a 3rd term. He had previously served 2 terms as president. He was not seriously injured, and he did not win the election. And in 1981, Ronald Reagan was safe after an assassination attempt in Washington, D.C. 3 people were also shot, including his press secretary, who was partially paralyzed. If you want more about the history of U.S. presidential protection or other government agencies and how they work, let us know through hi@firststopnews.com. Okay, so now let's talk about the convention. Nominating conventions happen every 4 years. It's where delegates officially choose and announce the party's presidential nominee. A delegate is a person who is selected by their parties to represent their state or district. Each state has both Republican and Democratic delegates.
The state of Oklahoma proudly cast all of its 43 votes for President Donald J. Trump.
The conventions also have a lot of speeches, meetings, and events with very important party leaders. One of the biggest moments of the week was Trump securing the nomination early on Monday.
Let's make it official. Donald J. Trump, having received a majority of the votes entitled to be cast at the convention, has been selected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
Trump is expected to speak tonight in front of thousands of attendees. Trump also announced his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, on the social network Truth Social. Vance spoke at the convention yesterday.
Mr. Chairman, I stand here humbled, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to say I officially accept your nomination to be Vice President of the United States of America.
Vance is relatively new to politics. He was elected to the Senate from Ohio in 2022. He was very public about not voting for Trump in 2016, but has been one of his most loyal supporters since joining Congress. Prior to politics, he was in the Marine Corps, got his law degree, and worked in finance. He's also an author, and his 2016 memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, was a bestseller that turned into an Academy Award-nominated movie in 2020. If Trump wins the presidential election in November, it will be his 2nd term as president. Now, we all know you can only be president for 2 elected terms, a total of 8 years, but that was not always the case. Our question of the day: which U.S. president served 4 terms in office? The answer: Franklin Delano Roosevelt, also known as FDR. He was elected in 1932 and 1936. and then again in 1940 and in 1944. That's 4. It had been an unwritten tradition that started with George Washington that a president would only serve 2 terms. Enter the 22nd Amendment. It was added to the Constitution in 1951, and it said all future presidents could only be elected for 2 terms. Think of conventions as the kickoff to election season, and the Democratic National Convention begins August 19th in Chicago, Illinois, where Biden is expected to remain in the Democratic nominee with current VP Kamala Harris on his ticket. But Biden has received some pressure within his party to step down since the first debate on June 27th. But President Biden says he's not going anywhere.
You probably noticed there's been a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
And here he is talking to NBC News earlier this week.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party. Okay? I listen to them.
We'll keep watching all of this, so make sure you're subscribed for anything new. Whew, okay. That was a lot. That was heavy.
We have earned the support of enough delegates to secure the Democratic nomination.
I know I can't be the only one that's felt like I've lived a month and a week with this news cycle. The Democrats have a new presidential nominee.
We have 105 days until Election Day. And in that time, we've got some work to do. But we're not afraid of hard work. We like hard work, don't we? And we will win this election.
On Sunday, President Biden announced he will not seek re-election. In a letter, he wrote, quote, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." He also fully endorsed Kamala Harris, his VP, for the job. And within 48 hours, she did it.
I will spend the coming weeks continuing to unite our party so that we are ready to win in November.
Kamala Harris secured enough support from Democratic delegates to make the nomination a reality. Now, it's expected to all become official at the Democratic National Convention on August 19th. We're gonna get into all of this, but first, our question of the day. Has a president ever decided not to run for a second term? We're not gonna keep you waiting like usual. We're gonna give you the answer right now. Well, actually, Moshe Anunu, editor-in-chief of Mo News, is gonna give us the answer.
So this is the first time we've seen something like this happen in American history. There have been examples where a president has decided not to run for a second term. Most recently in the 1960s, there was a president named Lyndon Johnson, and he decided in spring of the election year not to run for re-election. But what we saw happen with Joe Biden, this is the latest we've ever seen it happen, just weeks before the convention and after Democratic voters across the country had already voted for him. And that's what really makes what happened last weekend pretty remarkable.
My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States.
Biden spoke for the first time since his announcement.
I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition.
He emphasized his support for Harris.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country.
He promised to finish out his time in office, and now it's back to business as usual.
I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you.
Quick recap on how we got here. Pressure for Biden to drop out of the presidential race increased after he debated Trump on June 27th. And during the night, Biden performed poorly, and many worried he was too old to continue in the race. But up until last week, Biden was insisting he wasn't going anywhere.
I know how to do this job. And I know the good Lord hasn't brought us this far to leave us now.
The White House announced he tested positive for COVID, and 4 days later, Biden released his statement. Let's go back to Moshe, who broke down how this historic decision came to be.
Joe Biden's 81 years old. He spent his entire life wanting to be president. Once he was elected once, he very much wanted to stay in the job. So what happened over the last few weeks was a fight between the president and people around him. Him saying, I think I can do this for 4 more years. And people around him saying, no, we don't think you can. Now, what ultimately led to his decision was they came back with what's called polls. And they asked voters, who do you want to be president? Do you have confidence in these people? And what they found from these polls was increasingly voters across the country were saying, actually, we think that Joe Biden is not able to serve 4 more years in office. So they came back to him with the research showing that it was virtually impossible for him to win in November against Donald Trump. And that's what led to his decision to drop out.
Jumping in real quick. Biden's political career has spanned over 50 years. He was only 29 when he was elected into the Senate in 1972. He was then re-elected 6 times. He ran for president and lost the Democratic nomination in 1988 and 2008. But Barack Obama, who won the nomination in 2008, picked Biden to be his VP. And the two spent 8 years in the White House. In 2020, Biden beat Trump to become president. And now he's ready to campaign for Harris. Want to know more? Go check out our Who is Joe Biden video. And don't forget to like and subscribe for all of our new videos or else. All right, back to me and Moshe. How important is it that President Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris?
It's a big deal because he is the leader of the Democratic Party. He's the sitting president of the United States. So the fact that he went forward and said, hey, all you delegates who are set to vote for me, vote for her, now that I'm not running again.
Moving on to vice presidents, is there any idea who Harris's VP will be?
A number of names are being circulated. They include U.S. senators, members of Congress, governors, people who run their states. When you think about a vice president, oftentimes you're trying to think about somebody who can help you win in November. She'll be looking to someone that maybe has a strength she doesn't have. So she worked as an attorney general at the state level. She's been vice president, but she's never run a state. So maybe having someone in that leadership position will be helpful to her. This is a team, the president and the vice president. So she's going to want someone she has chemistry with.
And will that person be announced at the DNC?
It's up to her to decide when and how to announce the vice president. Typically, it happens right around the convention, but certainly this year has shown us that there are going to be a lot of surprises and a lot of unexpected events. It will happen anytime between now and the convention on August 19th.
4 years ago, Kamala Harris made history as the first female, first Black American, and first South Asian American to ever be elected as vice president. But before she got all those titles, she was a lawyer, a senator, and a presidential candidate. Harris was born in the 1960s in Oakland, California, to a dad from Jamaica and a mom from India. After high school, she went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., law school in San Francisco, and then was elected district attorney of San Francisco in 2003. 7 years later, she was elected as the first Black American and first woman to serve as California's Attorney General, which is the top lawyer and law enforcement official for a specific state. A few years later, she became a senator for California. She focused her work on healthcare, immigration, and gun reform. Harris is married to Doug Emhoff and is a stepmom to his 2 children, who call her Mamala. Harris ran for president as a Democrat in the 2020 election. She didn't win the primary race, but Joe Biden did, and he chose her as his vice presidential running mate. In 2020, Biden and Harris beat Donald Trump and his running mate Mike Pence to win the election. She served 4 years as vice president, where she supported President Biden and traveled to more than 20 countries and met with more than 150 world leaders. If she wins the 2024 election, she will be the first female president in the history of the United States. If that wasn't enough news, we've got more. On Tuesday, the head of the Secret Service resigned from her position after testifying in front of a House Oversight Committee about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency.
Cheadle said the Secret Service knew that the roof was a problem before the rally and were made aware of a suspicious person at the event. Both Republicans and Democrats demanded Cheadle resign from her position. The investigation into what happened is still going on. And to close it all out, the Paris Olympics, which I will be watching, begins with the opening ceremony on Friday, July 26th. I am most excited to watch LeBron James and Coco Gauff carry the flag for the USA. Will you be watching? Send us a pic or a video of your favorite part to hi@firststopnews.com. See you next week. We're 1 week into the Summer Olympics in Paris, France.
And here's where we are in terms of medal count as of this morning.
Team USA has the most medals with a total of 31. 6 of those are gold, 13 silver, and 12 bronze.
France is next with a total of 26. 8 of those are gold.
And China rounds out the top 3 with a total of 21. 11 of those are gold.
One of the coolest moments in the game so far, watching the US men's gymnastics team snag a bronze medal. It's the first time they made it to the podium in 16 years.
Don't forget, the women's gymnastics team won the gold. That win made Simone Biles the most decorated Olympic gymnast ever, with 8 medals, and she may even snag another gold today at the women's all-around.
Katie Ledecky also won gold in the 1500-meter freestyle, setting an Olympic record with a time of 15:30.02. It's her 12th career medal in the pool.
Plus, the U.S. women's rugby team took home their first medal after beating Australia for the bronze.
And the U.S. men's rowing team glided into first place, their first win since 1960, and there's still so much more happening.
Larry, tell me about this wardrobe choice today.
Oh, I'm so glad you noticed, Kelsey.
Of course, how could I not?
This is the jersey supporting the U.S. men's skateboarding Olympic team. My favorite detail are the 2 little bald eagles playing saxophone. Pretty cool.
How American.
But since we're talking about the Paris Olympics, we've got a question about French food.
Ask away.
How many ingredients are used to bake real French bread? Is it 2, 4, or 10?
All I know is definitely less than American ingredients.
If you answered 4, then you are correct. The French take their bread making very seriously. In fact, there is a French law, no joke, that says all types of French bread must be made with only 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. And believe it or not, one of the most popular foods to eat in France is this.
A baguette, a long, narrow, stick-shaped loaf of bread. Just a few months ago, 18 French bakers created the world's longest baguette, and they set a world record. It was 140.53 meters long, which is about 461 feet. That's longer than the length of a football field.
And the team used 200 pounds of flour to make the dough. They shaped it and they fed it in the oven, and then it came out bit by bit on the other side, fully baked just like this one here. Now, once they got the longest baguette title,
I can confirm that this attempt has been successful.
the giant baguette was sliced open and spread with Nutella and passed out to the public. Do you like Nutella?
Absolutely not with my nut allergy. Oh. The French love their bread so much, they release a limited edition stamp that's scratch and sniff baguette smell. Look at this cute baguette on it, tied with red, white, and blue ribbon, the colors of the French flag. I'll scratch, you sniff.
How about I scratch and you sniff?
These stamps have failed us.
I have an idea. Hold that. All right, now scratch it. Now sniff it. Does that work better?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
we fixed it.
Smells perfect.
Let's pause from the games for a second. Have you ever had or seen one of these? It's the... Sorry. Have you ever had or seen one of these? It's the Kevin Durant branded Prime bottle. Now, The Olympics are everywhere right now, not just on TV, but also on t-shirts and food and drink packaging. The words and phrases on that packaging, things like Olympic, Team USA, or Going for Gold, those are actually trademarked by the US Olympic Committee, which means they're legally registered and companies need to pay to use them on merchandise. Logan Paul and KSI are learning that the hard way. Last week, the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee sued Prime Hydration, a company founded by the influencers, for using the trademark phrases on the drinks. These phrases are on the actual packaging and were used in advertising and across social. The committee says they used the money from licensing those famous Olympic trademarks to help fund the US Olympic team, and if companies like Prime Hydration use the terms without paying for the trademark, it's misleading. Paul and Prime Hydration haven't responded to the lawsuit, but they have removed the images of the products from their social channels and site. We reached out, but haven't heard back.
Let's stay in our Olympic era with some fun facts. The first Olympics were in 776 BC, lasted 6 months, and it's believed athletes competed without clothes. The girlies could not compete in the games until 1900, however, artists could. From 1921 to 1948, painters, writers, and musicians used to compete for medals. At one point, motorboat sailing, hot air ballooning, live pigeon shooting, and tug of war were all Olympic sports. Let's jump to this year. The medals are made from parts of the Eiffel Tower. Olympians have been sharing behind the scenes of the Olympic Village, especially the beds.
For those wondering about the cardboard beds in the village, I'm going to show you what they look like.
Yes, the beds are made out of cardboard, something that began at the last Olympics in Tokyo, but they seem to be holding up okay. US gymnasts are sparkling for real. There's a record 47,000 Swarovski crystals across all the uniforms the female gymnasts are wearing. And finally, this is not the first Paris Olympics. It's actually the third. They hosted once in 1900 and then exactly 100 years ago in 1924.
Let's also talk about where things are happening. You've probably noticed there's lots of events in, around, and outside of Paris. Some French landmarks are even being repurposed for the games. The Palace of Versailles, about an hour train ride from Paris, is hosting a lot of the equestrian events. You heard me right, it's a full-on palace where French royalty used to live in the 1600s. It was turned into a museum and garden back in the 1830s, honoring historic French events.
The Grand Palais, just off the Champs-Élysées, is the place for Taekwondo and fencing. This site was originally built in 1900 for the Paris Universal Exhibition, which was a World's Fair.
Breaking and BMX athletes compete for gold at Place de la Concorde, a major public square in the city.
The marathon will start at Hotel de Ville, which is Paris' city hall, and ends at Esplanade des Invalides, which is also where archery takes place, a large garden in the heart of Paris.
Some of the water sports aren't happening near Paris at all. Surfing is being held almost 1,000 miles away in Tahiti, an island in French Polynesia. It's one of the furthest distances from a host city that an event has been held. In fact, many of the athletes competing are living in a floating Olympic village.
There's also sailing. The competition's in Marseille, a city in the south of France. And there are events scheduled for the Seine, which is a river that runs through Paris. It's supposed to hold a triathlon and distance swimming events tomorrow. Let's talk about the Seine for a minute. Did you see this? It's the mayor of Paris taking a dip in the city's river just a couple weeks before the opening ceremony. The reason? City officials wanted to show that the water was safe for the athletes to swim in. We just mentioned marathon swimming, and the Olympic triathlon are scheduled to take place in the city's river. This is also where the opening ceremony happened, but the water quality has been a real issue.
Since 2015, organizers have invested more than $1 billion to prepare the Seine for the Olympics and to ensure Parisians have a cleaner river after the Games. While it seemed like the water levels were okay when the mayor swam, recent rain made any progress in water quality take a step back, and officials had to cancel a qualifying event last weekend. While the men's event was postponed by a day, on Wednesday both the men and women triathletes dove in after testing revealed the water was safe.
One of the coolest things about the Olympics is you get to learn about people and places you may not know much about, and what it takes to make it to a global competitive stage. Like the South Sudan basketball team, who are making their Olympic debut. Sudan, which is in Northeast Africa, has experienced decades of conflict and violence, But the southern part of the country gained independence in 2011 after almost 10 years of civil war.
That war caused buildings to be ruined or never even constructed at all, including gyms and other facilities. In fact, the Olympic team didn't even have an indoor court in their country. They had to practice in the neighboring country of Kenya. Back in 2015, the Olympic Committee made South Sudan its own member country, meaning they were allowed to compete under their flag. And 9 years later, the country earned its first spot in the Olympics.
The team is about a lot more than basketball. It's filled with refugees and children of refugees who had to leave the country to get away from the Civil War.
It's always been just a lot of decades of just constant war, civil war, fighting, and tribalism. What the basketball team is actually doing right now is creating peace.
Most of the players live abroad and had to be recruited back to South Sudan to join the team. And now they get to represent a country they didn't even know would exist at one point. South Sudan plays their next game this weekend against Serbia.
There's still a lot of Olympics left. Breaking, which is making its Olympic debut, is happening on August 9th. Track and field kicks off August 2nd.
I'll be watching Sha'Carri Richardson and Noah Lyles try for gold. And there's more swimming, more gymnastics, and basketball to be viewed. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you here next week.
And let's go USA.
Sean,
Yes, we do. This is First Up News. Everything we do is perfect.